Chapter 32:10. The upgrade this time was to restore the reputation of Miracle Dr. Guan's first-level cauldron. It wasn't just for the sake of upgrading. After all, Han Jingjing had basically given up on researching and developing a first-level cauldron. There was nothing left to research and develop. All first-level pills could be made with a first-level cauldron. There was no need to upgrade it anymore. Of course, the most important thing was that after a few back-and-forth commercial wars, the market demand for first-level cauldrons had reached a state of saturation. The explosive sales from before no longer existed. Unless there was an additional alchemist apprentice in the sect, or someone's cauldron was accidentally broken, basically no one would buy a cauldron. So in this market, Han Jingjing simply did not fight for it. The company's crisis had been temporarily past. Her main focus now was on researching and developing a second-level cauldron. However, a second-level cauldron wasn't something that could be completed overnight. Currently, there was only some progress in theory. She still needed a lot of experiments. And this time, the encryption technology had to be more advanced. So there was still a long process before it could be put on the market. Lin Yi was thinking about how to raise Han Jingjing to Sky class as soon as possible. As long as Han Jingjing was a Sky class master, she would fulfill the requirements for a third-level pill. She should be able to make the Qi-gathering pill. Of course, the most important problem was that Lin Yi didn't have a third-level cauldron yet. Han Jingjing could only simulate making pills. She couldn't actually do it. Although she had obtained a Shinnom cauldron from Right Coiling Tiger, it was broken and incomplete. She originally thought that she could get a divine tool medicine cauldron from the ancient tomb, but it had mysteriously disappeared. Therefore, even if Han Jingjing could refine it, there was no medicine cauldron to use for the time being. Thinking about this, Lin Yi felt that it was necessary for him to research a third-level cauldron. The first plan was to repair the Shinnom cauldron. Lin Yi got a book called The Way of Mending from Han Xiaopa's house. Lin Yi hadn't studied it in detail yet. According to the introduction, it was easier to become a mending master than a blacksmith. A blacksmith needed to have 3 attributes, while a mending master only needed 2. Now that Lin Yi was a cultivator of the 5 elements and 7 attributes, he had 2 virtual and 5 real attributes. He was more than enough to become a mending master. The second plan was to find a way to get a third-level cauldron from the Heavenly Elixir sect. Basically, Lin Yi couldn't count on the Yu family. It was estimated that the entire Yu family only had 1 or 2 third-level cauldrons. This kind of thing could only be forged by a blacksmith, and the Yu family couldn't. Naturally, they couldn't give their only medicine cauldron to Lin Yi unless Lin Yi could offer them benefits that they couldn't refuse. However, it was obvious that Lin Yi wouldn't give them benefits that they couldn't refuse. As for the third plan, it was to collect the refining materials for a third-level cauldron. Lin Yi could refine one himself. Now that Lin Yi was a blacksmith, it shouldn't be a big problem to refine a third-level cauldron. However, it seemed that the feasibility of the first and second plans was higher. Lin Yi had the way of the blacksmith mending remnant volume in his hands. He could learn the blacksmith mending technique and repair the Shinnom cauldron. However, he didn't know what level of blacksmith mending technique was needed to repair the Shinnom cauldron. Moreover, he didn't know if he could find the corresponding materials for the repair. The second plan was nothing more than the next time Kong Mingming looked for him to discuss the conditions, he could exchange for a third-level cauldron. This plan was more feasible, but the price to pay would definitely be higher. Now, Kong Mingming wasn't a fool. He would definitely ask for a sky-high price. As for the third plan, it was more unrealistic. First of all, Lin Yi didn't know the casting method of a third-level cauldron. Without the corresponding information, he didn't know what materials were needed. Moreover, the blacksmith technique that Lin Yi was currently learning was only used to condense the space in the jade pendant. Whether he was a blacksmith or not, he didn't know whether he could refine a third-level cauldron. After thinking for a while, Lin Yi took out the Way of the Blacksmith Mending Remnant volume and flipped through it. If the first method didn't work, Lin Yi would have to study the second method. Just like blacksmiths, the profession of tinker was also divided into 4 levels: heaven, earth, black, and yellow. The highest level was heaven, and the lowest was yellow. Similarly, unlike cultivators and alchemists, tinker and blacksmiths only had these 4 levels. Now, it seemed that blacksmith mending and blacksmith mending came from the same origin. These 2 professions were also very similar. Opening the Way of the Blacksmith Mending Remnant volume, there was a description of the tools that could be repaired. A yellow-level blacksmith mending master could repair a first-level divine weapon. A black-level blacksmith mending master could repair a second-level divine weapon. An earth-level blacksmith mending master could repair a third-level divine weapon. And a heaven-level blacksmith mending master could repair a fourth-level divine weapon. The back of the book was blank. There were only the words fifth-level divine weapon, but it didn't say what kind of blacksmith mending master could repair. Now that he thought about it, the remnant volume of the Way of the Blacksmith Mending Manual meant that it wasn't complete. This should be a complete copy of the Way of the Blacksmith Mending Manual. Above the heaven level, there was the level of cultivators. Lin Yi already knew about this. It was commonly known as the Heavenly Tao. Perhaps only a Heavenly Tao master could repair a fifth-level divine weapon. The introduction of a first-level divine weapon was a weapon that could be used by a yellow-level blacksmith mending master. Reading this, Lin Yi couldn't help but be slightly stunned. Could it be that a yellow-level blacksmith mending master could also use a divine weapon? The introduction of the book overturned Lin Yi's previous understanding. However, thinking about it, Han Xiaopa should have read this book before. Didn't he have any doubts? Thinking about this, Lin Yi called Han Xiaopa directly to find out what was going on. Boss, Han Xiaopa was a bit curious about Lin Yi's sudden call. Did something happen? East Ocean City had been very peaceful recently, and the hostile ancient forces had temporarily stopped their activities. Therefore, Han Xiaopa really didn't think that something had happened to Lin Yi. Xiaopa, I want to ask you something. Lin Yi said, you should have read the remnant volume of the Way of the Blacksmith Mending Manual that I took from the Han family, right? There are some things in it that I want to ask you. Chapter 32:11. It's like this. It says that a first-grade magical weapon can be used by a yellow-class cultivator, and a second-grade magical weapon can be used by a mystic-class cultivator, and so on. Lin Yi paused before continuing. What I want to know is, isn't it common knowledge that only heaven-class experts can use magical weapons? How can a yellow-class, mystic-class, and earth-class expert have magical weapons? Oh, boss, you don't know this? Han Xiaopa was puzzled after hearing Lin Yi's question. He didn't understand why Lin Yi would ask such a question. What's wrong? Does everyone know about this? Lin Yi was slightly taken aback before smiling bitterly. Xiaopa, it's not like you don't know that I'm a rogue cultivator. I don't know about these things that everyone knows. That's right. Han Xiaopa suddenly remembered Lin Yi's identity after hearing Lin Yi's words. He immediately said, I'm sorry, boss. I didn't mean to make fun of you. I really thought you knew about this. It's okay. I know. Tell me what's going on. Lin Yi said nonchalantly, actually, it's very simple. Indeed, a long time ago, all cultivators had magical weapons such as yellow class, mystic class, and earth class. However, the quality of these weapons was obviously not as good as a heaven class magical weapon. Just like a first grade and second grade cauldron, these things have a lifespan. Han Xiaopa explained, the profession of blacksmiths has disappeared for a long time, and the profession of blacksmiths has never appeared again. The divine weapons used by yellow, mystic, and even earth class masters are basically all broken and buried in the river of time. What's left now are only a few heaven-grade divine weapons of excellent quality. Most of them are also broken, which is why heaven-grade divine weapons are so rare nowadays. As for Earth-class magical weapons, perhaps some damaged wreckage can be found in the treasure vaults of some sects, but they are no longer usable. I see. Lin Yi was suddenly enlightened. It turned out that cultivators could use divine weapons. However, the blacksmiths were gone, and so were the weapon replenishers. The divine weapons used by the masters of the Yellow, Mystic, and Earth ranks were also gone. The reason why the heaven-ranked divine weapons had been preserved until now was also because their quality was better. Of course, only those of good quality had been preserved. The majority of them had been damaged. Little Puh, for example, ancient divine weapons. What grade do they belong to? What level of cultivators are using it? Lin Yi asked. Ancient godly weapon? This kind of divine weapon can be used by heaven-ranked elites, but legend has it that only heaven-ranked elites can use this kind of divine weapon. As for the imitation divine weapon, it can only be used by heaven-ranked elites. It can't withstand the strength of a heaven-ranked elite's true chi. Of course, these are all legends. I've never seen it before. Han Xiaopa explained. I understand, Little Puh. Lin Yi nodded and said, How's the Han family recently? It's pretty good. The Zhao family is done for. We took over the Zhao family's territory and foundation. Although the Zhao family doesn't have much money, they still have some natural treasures. After these things merged with our Han family's treasure vault, the Han family is currently not weak among all the hidden families. Han Xiaopa said happily. Oh, right. Grandpa said that when you have time, you can come and choose these things to see if there are any that you can use. There are only a few things that I can use. Linny said with a smile. I'm not very interested in the others. You can keep them for yourself. That's fine. Anyway, boss, if you need anything, just let me know, Han Xiaopa said. After hanging up the phone with Han Xiaopa, Lin Yi looked at the incomplete scroll of the Way of Tool Mender in his hand and sighed. According to the classification, a first-grade medicine cauldron was also a first-grade divine weapon. A second-grade medicine cauldron was a second-grade divine weapon, and so on. The Shinnon cauldron was an ancient godly weapon. In this case, even a heaven-ranked tool mender wouldn't be able to repair it. This thing should be a fifth-grade divine weapon, right? And Lin, he wasn't even a first-grade yellow-ranked tool mender. It wasn't realistic for him to repair the Shinnon cauldron. Let's not talk about whether Lin he could become a fourth-grade heaven-ranked tool mender. Even if he did, he probably wouldn't be able to repair the Shinnon cauldron. It seemed like he could only think of a way to get one from the Heavenly Elixir sect, and this incomplete scroll of the Way of Tool Mender was temporarily stored in the Jade Space by Lin Yi. Recently, Lin Yi had a lot of things to do, so he focused on cultivation. As for the tool mender, there weren't any godly weapons that needed to be repaired right now. Lin Yi didn't need to waste his energy on learning and practicing. When he had free time, Lin Yi would research this thing again. In actuality, Lin Yi was thinking if he could let Han Jingjing learn this thing. Could she make a scientific tool mender? If she could, then he wouldn't have to learn it himself. Lin Yi thought it was funny when he thought of this, but now he was relying on Han Jingjing more and more. Today was the day that Lin Yi brought Su Shirhan and Cheng Yi to the Songshan orphanage. Lin Yi had already made plans with Xiaoke and Ken to bring the two celebrities to the orphanage for rehearsal. Today's orphanage had undergone tremendous changes. Although it had moved to the suburbs, the orphanage already had its own school and auditorium. The auditorium was built to enrich the orphans' learning life. Here they could hold get-togethers, art festivals, and even watch movies. This was the venue for the fundraising event, and the gymnasium near the hall was for the orphans to train and have sports events. It could be used for concerts, although these facilities looked luxurious. Since Xiaoke wanted to build a top-level charity base, these things were approved by Lin Yi. In actuality, Lin Yi didn't need much money. He only needed to earn enough. There were two reasons why Lin Yi donated most of his money to Xiaoke. One was because of his identity as a male thief, and the other was a more important reason. Chapter 32:12. To be honest, Lin Yi's master's wealth was unimaginable. Lin Yi didn't need to earn money himself, but now that his master wasn't here, Lin Yi didn't want to borrow money from his master. So he started his own company. Of course, Lin Yi didn't tell anyone about this. Fatty Lai and Lu Jinghan simply thought that he donated money because he liked it, and they didn't know the deeper reason behind it. But this wasn't important, and Lin Yi didn't plan to say it. Xiaoke looked at the man who helped her a lot, and her heart was filled with emotions. She felt like a pregnant girl who couldn't be with Lin Yi, but she couldn't resist the temptation of Lin Yi's money time and time again. Sometimes Xiaoke thought that she was really bad. She took so much money from Lin Yi, and did she really think that Lin Yi was a fool? Was he the same as the people who stole wallets? Of course, it wasn't the same. Xiaoke wasn't a heartless person, but for the orphanage, for the children, Xiaoke would rather be punished by Lin Yi in the future. Even if he killed her, Xiaoke would accept it. Lin Yi naturally didn't know what Xiaoke was thinking. He looked at the clothes she was wearing when he first met her, and he couldn't help but sigh. The orphanage was so rich now, but Xiaoke still dressed like this. He could tell that she didn't spend a single cent on him, and this made Lin Yi admire this girl. This was also the reason why Lin Yi, as a male thief, gradually fell in love with Xiaoke. She was a strong girl. Of course, as for Xiaoke's anger towards Lin Yi didn't mind. It was fine as long as he knew the truth. If it weren't for the fact that he was a male thief, Lin Yi wouldn't have paid so much money to Xiaoke's orphanage. Although old Lin did donate, Lin Yi could have donated to other orphanages or charities. Xiaoke, if you have the chance, buy some clothes for yourself. I don't need to say how good they are, but you don't need to look so shabby. You're the manager of the orphanage, and if you dress so shabbily, it won't be easy for you to get sponsors, Lin Yi said. I don't have money. You'll buy it for me? Xiaoke wanted her to save as much as she could, but when she said it, it became something that people misunderstood. Xiaoke was troubled. Did she know how to speak? Wasn't this a hint to Lin Yi? As expected, Lin Yi paused for a moment. That workable. How about this? I bring you to buy some clothes later. Tomorrow is the day of the charity event and concert. You can't go on stage wearing these clothes, can you? Xiaoke wanted to reject, but after hearing Lin Yi's words, she felt that something was wrong. She was representing the orphanage to speak tomorrow, and it didn't seem right to dress so shabbily. Those in the know would know that Xiaoke really wanted to save money, but those who didn't would think that Xiaoke was putting on a show, and it would make the people who donated feel disgusted. After all, the skyscrapers, the auditorium, and the stadium were all grand, but Xiaoke, a manager of a charity organization, had to wear rags. If this wasn't putting on a show, then what was? And so Xiaoke hesitated. She didn't want to agree, but she didn't want to spend the money, and if she agreed, she'd have to get closer to Lin Yi again. She was a stingy girl, and he could think whatever he wanted. She made up her mind. She was a bad girl, and he could think whatever he wanted. Okay, that's what you said. Xiaoke nodded. Lin Yi was startled. He didn't think that Xiaoke would really agree. It was strange. Wasn't this girl always hiding from him? Why did she change her mind today? But in front of so many people, it wasn't appropriate for him to ask. He only nodded in agreement. Right, where's the dean? Lin Yi looked around and realized that other than Xiao Ken, the dean was nowhere to be seen. Logically speaking, the dean should have come out for something this big. After all, Su Shihan and Chen Yi were big stars, and they were here to help the orphanage. As the dean of the orphanage, she couldn't possibly avoid them. Could she? The dean isn't feeling well, so she's resting in the room. Xiaoke was curious why the dean didn't show up. She didn't know why he was against the concert and the donations, but today He suddenly said that he wasn't feeling well for such a big event. Xiaoka didn't know what to do, but she didn't know what to do. "Oh, what's wrong with the dean? Do you need me to go see her?" Lin Yi asked worriedly. "I don't know. Maybe we can go see her?" Xiaoka was curious too. Lin Yi was a doctor, so it was good for him to see the dean. "Let's go then." Lin Yi waved at the car behind, signaling Su Shirhan and Cheng Yi to get off. They were celebrities, and they didn't get off the car when they arrived at the orphanage. They wanted to go to the hall and gymnasium to rehearse. There were many places in the orphanage under construction, and there were many outsiders. If the two celebrities showed up, they would attract the attention of the workers. "Han, we're going to see the dean. Are you going to rehearse directly or with me? If you're going directly, Xiao Ken will follow you. If not, we'll go see the dean. She's sick. I'm going to see her." "Then we'll go see her with you." Su Shirhan was a kind-hearted person. She heard that the dean was sick, so she had to go see her. And so Lin Yi brought Xiaoka and Ken to the MPV. This was Feng Sanwang's MPV, and it had a lot of space. Xiaoka and Ken didn't feel cramped when they got in. He couldn't recognize the orphanage anymore, and Ken was the only one leading the way. San Wang turned here and there before stopping in front of a dormitory. Lin Yi had been here before, but the building had changed a lot. They got out of the car, entered the dormitory, and arrived at the door of the old dean's room. Xiaoka knocked on the door, and the dean's voice came from inside. "Who is it, Xiaoka?" "It's me, Master," Xiaoka said. Chapter 32:13. The dean wasn't lying. There was indeed something wrong with her body, and she could feel that she didn't have much time left. Although she wouldn't die immediately, it would be within a year or two. The injuries she suffered when she was young were too severe, and after that she forced herself to cultivate. Her meridians were always in a damaged state, and she continued to cultivate. This way, although she recovered part of her strength, it also caused her meridians to overload, speeding up her aging. Her body's functions entered the twilight years ahead of time. Therefore, the dean wasn't lying. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat when he saw the dean. This was because O.L. Amos had indeed aged a lot compared to the last time they had met. Although she was old before, her spirit was hale and hearty. But now, why did she look like she had one foot in the grave? Seeing this, Lin Yi frowned slightly and hurriedly asked Dean, "I heard you're sick. What happened? You don't look well?" "It's nothing, just an old illness." The dean smiled, obviously unwilling to talk too much with Lin Yi. She just wanted to send Lin Yi and the others away. "Rest, and you'll be fine." The dean's words were very clear. She wanted to rest, and as long as Lin Yi and the others weren't idiots, they would definitely be able to hear the dean's intention to send them away. But it was one thing for Lin Yi to hear it, and another for him to do it. Lin Yi didn't have any intention of leaving. He entered the dean's room, and after a moment of silence, he said, "Dean, let me take a look for you." Actually, when he was treating Boss Bai, Yu Xiaoka had brought up a similar question, asking him to treat her master. But back then, Lin Yi had many concerns because Lin Yi's strength wasn't high, and he was afraid that if he treated Yu Xiaoka's master, her enemy would take revenge. After all, Lin Yi vaguely heard that Yu Xiaoka's master was a mystic or even an earth class, so the person who injured her was at least an earth class or even a sky class. This meant that Lin Yi wasn't a match for this enemy at all. But it was different now. Lin Yi was famous outside, and even in the ancient sects, it was said that Lin Yi could instantly kill a sky class late phase pinnacle. With this kind of method, who would dare to cause trouble for Lin Yi, unless they didn't want to live and wanted to die? Now that he had healed the orphanage's old dean, theoretically speaking, not only would the enemy not come for revenge, but the enemy wouldn't even dare to cause trouble for the old dean if he knew that it was Lin Yi who healed the old dean. Even the everyday sect and the Dongfang family had disappeared without a trace. Would others think that they were stronger than them? That was obviously impossible. Yushauka paused. She'd begged Lin Yi to heal the dean once, but Lin Yi brushed it off. What was up with Lin Yi today? Did he change? Why did he treat the old dean's injuries? Was it because she'd promised Lin Yi that she'd accept his clothes? So Lin Yi misunderstood that she wanted to be his girlfriend? Yes, that must be it. Otherwise, why would Lin Yi be so proactive? With that thought, Yushauka felt depressed. She wanted to explain, but then she remembered that the dean's injuries could be healed. What was the point of this? Forget it. She'd just given to Lin Yi. The dean was her master, and she'd raised her up. She had to repay her. For more than 10 years, Yushauka had lived for others. She'd never thought for herself. She'd finally met a male thief, but she couldn't choose her own love. However, Yushauka didn't regret it. That was the kind of person she was. Lin Yi, are you planning to heal, master? Yushauka asked directly so that Lin Yi couldn't reject. I'll see. Lin Yi nodded. Then, if you heal the dean, I'll be grateful to you. Yushauka wanted to say that she'd given to Lin Yi, but she couldn't bring herself to say it. What if Lin Yi didn't mean it that way? Although Yushauka felt that it was impossible for Lin Yi to not mean it that way, she still spoke ambiguously. Oh, Lin Yi didn't think much about it. His attention was completely on the dean. Seeing Lin Yi's indifferent face, Yushauka felt a little discouraged. Did he not treat her as a treasure anymore if she gave in to him? Yushauka was a little depressed. At this moment, Su Shirhan was looking at the dean of the orphanage. She frowned. She felt that the dean was someone from her memory, but she couldn't remember where she had seen him before. However, this feeling of familiarity made her want to find out the truth, but she couldn't think of anything at the moment. However, the more she thought about it, the more curious Su Shirhan got. After all, when a person saw a familiar face, they would always rack their brains to think of the person's background. Even if they couldn't think of it, they would still continue to think, "My head hurts." Su Shirhan's head suddenly started to hurt. It was a pain that came out of nowhere. Cold sweat dripped down her forehead. Luckily, she usually didn't wear makeup. Otherwise, her makeup would have been ruined. Lin Yi was just about to check on the dean's injury when he heard Su Shirhan's moaning. He jumped in fright. Su Shirhan had been fine at home for so many days. Why did she have a headache as soon as she went out? However, he didn't dare to neglect her. After all, Su Shirhan was a guest that he invited to the orphanage. He quickly apologized to the dean. "Dean, I'll check on her first. Please wait." "Okay. Quickly check on her. What's wrong with her?" The dean didn't care about her own problem. She knew her body's condition. It was a side effect of an injury when she was young. She wouldn't die any time soon. On the other hand, Su Shirhan was having a headache. The dean was very worried. Lin Yi saw the anxiety in the dean's eyes. He felt strange. He didn't understand why the dean was so concerned about Su Shirhan all of a sudden. But Su Shirhan was a guest of the orphanage. She had a headache, so the dean should care about her, right? Chung Yi took out the painkiller and was ready to give it to Su Shirhan. However, Lin Yi waved his hand and massaged Su Shirhan's forehead and chest, alleviating her headache. This medicine, although it doesn't have any side effects, if you take it for a long time, you will develop resistance. So, don't use it if you can. Chapter 32:14. Xiaohan, what's wrong? Why do you have a headache all of a sudden? Lin Yi asked curiously. I don't know. Maybe I overused my brain. Su Shirhan shook her head. She felt that the dean looked familiar. So, she kept thinking that it might be her childhood memories that triggered the headache. But she didn't want to give up. Dean, have we met before? The dean's expression froze, and she looked at Su Shirhan. Met before? Miss Su, have you been to the orphanage before? No, but I feel that you look familiar, Su Shirhan said. I think I've seen you somewhere before. I can't remember. Is that so? The dean didn't continue the topic, but turned to Lin Yi. Mr. Lin Yi, my body is fine. Why don't you bring Miss Su and Miss Chung to rehearse? Don't delay tomorrow's business. It won't delay. We've already rehearsed at home. Today, we just need to familiarize ourselves with the place. Su Shirhan waved her hand. Lin Yi, why don't you take a look at the dean? Linny nodded and sat beside the dean. He grabbed her arm and checked her pulse. The dean was helpless. She could only let Lin Yi check. After all, Lin Yi had good intentions. What else could she say? If she said too much, it would make Lin Yi even more suspicious. Lin Yi, how's my master? Xiaoke saw that Lin Yi didn't say anything, so she couldn't help but ask. Lin Yi frowned. The injury is very serious. From the looks of it, the dean will leave in 1 or 2 years. Ah, is this for real? Lin Yi, don't say that. Xiaoke was shocked. The dean was surprised. Although she knew that Lin Yi was an expert in medicine, how could he know all this just from a checkup? Isn't this too magical? Oh well, Amos was the one who knew her best. She had calculated it based on the progress of her aging, but Lin Yi had said it out loud. How could she not be surprised? Mr. Lin Yi is right. It's really just a matter of 1 or 2 years. The dean sighed. At first, I didn't have any plans. I wanted to hide this matter for a period of time. But today, since Mr. Lin Yi has seen through it, then I will say it. Dean, Xiaoke's eyes reddened. Lin Yi was indeed a miracle doctor, but it couldn't defy the heavens and change fate, right? So, when the dean said those words, Xiaoke really thought that the dean was going to leave her soon. She felt very uncomfortable and didn't know what to say for a moment. Su Shirhan and Chung Yi couldn't help but be silent. They didn't expect the two of them to just arrive. Although it was normal for people to be separated by life and death, no one would feel good when they encountered such a thing, especially Su Shirhan. Hearing that the dean of the orphanage only had 1 or 2 years left, she felt a little melancholy. She didn't know why, but she had never met this dean before. Su Shirhan had a special feeling. She was going to die. Su Shirhan felt bad as well. Dean, your illness came from the meridians that were injured in your early years. Later, in order to cultivate, you forcefully attacked your meridians. Although you have some strength now, the meridians that weren't injured couldn't handle such strong qi, and it started to deteriorate. Now, you can't hold it anymore, and are on the path of decline. Lin Yi said, not bad. Mr. Lin Yi, you are truly a miracle doctor. The dean nodded. She was very impressed with Lin Yi's medical skills. You've troubled yourself. I know my body. It's not a simple illness, so you don't have to feel bad. Dean, I've said it before. Just call me Lil B. You don't have to be so polite. Lin Yi waved his hand. Besides, it's not hard for me to cure you. Shall we start now? It's not hard. The dean paused after hearing Lin Yi's words. She was a little stunned. I can call you Lil B, but you can cure my illness. Is that for real? Xiaoke listened to Lin Yi's detailed explanation of the dean's illness. She wasn't sad anymore. She knew that Boss Bai's problem was the same as the dean's. Since it was caused by the meridians, Lin Yi must have a way to cure it. Xiaoke knew that Lin Yi was a man of his words. He wouldn't say anything he wasn't sure of. If he said he could cure her, then he really could. With that thought, Xiaoke got excited. Dean, if Lin Yi said that, then he must be confident. Oh, the dean's eyes lit up. Actually, who would want to die if they could live? Although the dean had already accepted it, she was still hopeful. Lin Yi, will it be troublesome for you to cure me? Won't it be a waste of energy? It will definitely be a waste of energy, but it won't be too troublesome. Lin Yi shook his head with a smile. Shall we start now? Now? How do I help you? The dean asked quickly. You don't have to do anything. Lin Yi smiled and held the dean's pulse again. He activated the third stage of the art of dragon mastery and started repairing the dean's meridians. The speed of the third stage of the art of dragon mastery was much faster than before. As a result, Lin Yi's treatment time was much shorter than Boss Bai's. Anyone could see that the dean's face was pale a moment ago, but the next moment, it was glowing and full of life. The changes that followed were all visible to the naked eye. The meridians in the old director's body recovered, and so did the vitality of her organs. Just like Grandma Sun back then, she immediately revealed the beauty of her youth. It was the same for the dean. Her skin used to be dry and wrinkled, but after Lin Yi's treatment, the wrinkles on her face became fewer and fewer, and she regained the beauty of a young woman. The dean was a practitioner, and she had always taken good care of herself. It was only after her injury that she became old. She was only in her early 40s, but she looked like she was in her 60s or 70s. But now, she was getting younger. 60 years old, 50 years old, 40 years old, 30 years old. Chapter 32:15. Although the dean was getting younger, everyone was excited because this was a miracle. Xiaoke clenched her fists. She knew that the dean would be fine this time, and only now did she know how beautiful she was when she was young. However, Su Shihan's eyes were filled with disbelief and shock, and this expression was getting more and more intense. She even wanted to scream out loud, but she didn't want to disturb Lin Yi's treatment. She could only suppress the excitement and shock in her heart, staring at the dean's face. Cheng Yi's face was filled with disbelief as well. She looked at the yard and then at Shihan, wanting to say something, but she didn't. Oh well, Amos didn't know that her appearance had changed. What she could feel was the changes within her body. Her broken and damaged meridians were recovering at an incredible speed. This recovery shocked the dean. She didn't expect Lin Yi to have this kind of magical ability. Although Lin Yi had treated Xiaoke before, she didn't think much about it at that time. After all, Xiaoke had just been injured, and it was different from her old injuries. Finally, Lin Yi let out a long breath and said to the dean, "It's done, Dean. Try it. Your meridians are all healed. What was your strength before?" Recovered just like that? The dean was shocked. She felt that her injuries were completely healed, but when Lin Yi said it, it was like she woke up from a dream. It wasn't a dream, but reality. "Yes, can you check?" Lin Yi nodded. The dean was very excited. "There's no need to check. I can feel that before I was injured, I was an Earth class early phase. But I'm only Golden class now, and even if my meridians are healed, the highest I can reach is Golden class late phase peak. With my age and talent, it'll be hard for me to get back to Mystic class, let alone Earth class." She couldn't help but sigh. "Without the support of treasures and resources, I won't be able to return to my peak." "Ha, if that's the case, then I'll help you recover your strength." Lin Yi smiled. He seized Amos' pulse once more. Right now, Lin Yi didn't need to hide these things. The more he showed to the outside world, the stronger he was. Then his opponents would be even more afraid of him. Of course, when they found out that Lin Yi wasn't that powerful, Lin Yi wouldn't be able to hide anything. They would still put Lin Yi to death. Kong Mingming and Jiang Wen probably wanted to do this a long time ago, and there was also Pin Liang who was staring at them. His three opponents, he had never thought of reconciling with her. As for Zhao Qibing, he was no longer a threat. He was just a stray dog. Therefore, Lin Yi did not care whether or not he would expose some of his magical abilities. Recover his strength? Amos was slightly taken aback and shocked. Yes, Lin Yi nodded. However, when Lin Yi turned to look at Amos, Lin Yi's eyes widened. He furrowed his brows. Why does the old dean look so familiar? He seemed to have seen her somewhere before. It wasn't that she looked similar to Amos from before. After all, the old dean now and the old dean before were worlds apart, just like Grandma's son before, and now there was no way to compare them. Even people she was familiar with wouldn't be able to tell that they were the same person. Mom. Just when Lin Yi was a little surprised, Su Shirhan finally couldn't hold it in anymore. She screamed and blurted out the word Mom. Su Shirhan's tears rolled down her beautiful face like pearls from a broken necklace. Su Shirhan's sudden call of Mom made everyone dumbfounded. Yu Xiaoke, Cheng Yi, and Lin Yi all froze. However, Cheng Yi had already guessed something, so she wasn't that calm. Yu Xiaoke, on the other hand, looked at Su Shirhan in disbelief, and then looked at O.L. Amos. Her face was filled with disbelief. Lin Yi, on the other hand, furrowed his brows. Before, he already felt that the old dean looked like the same person. Now that he turned to Su Shirhan, Lin Yi realized that the old dean in front of him was the mature version of Su Shirhan. The two of them were too similar. The face shape and facial features were practically carved from the same mold. Could it be that the old dean was Su Shirhan's mother? As soon as this thought popped up, Lin Yi felt that it was very possible. When Su Shirhan was a child, her mother was injured and disappeared. The old dean was also injured when she was young, and then hid in the orphanage. These two people had a lot in common, and now it seemed that they were the same person. The old dean's body shook. She didn't know how Su Shirhan recognized her. Lin Yi's guess was correct. The old dean was Su Shirhan's mother, Feng Tianlin's former lover. She was heavily injured by Dongfang Xiaocui and the Dongfang family and was forced to run for her life. Although she lost her daughter, she didn't dare to look for her daughter openly. She didn't want to be targeted by the Dongfang family, so she opened an orphanage. Her goal was to see if she could find Su Shirhan among the orphans. Of course, the result was disappointing. In the sea of people, how could it be that easy to find her? There was more than one orphanage, and the old dean couldn't find her daughter in the end, until one day, the old dean suddenly saw the news about the famous female star Su Shirhan in the newspaper. She couldn't help but cry, because Su Shirhan was her daughter. This name was given to her by Feng Tianlin himself. Su Shirhan's original name was Feng Shirhan, and the surname Su was the old dean's surname. Of course, the name didn't mean anything. What made the old dean certain was that Su Shirhan's appearance was exactly the same as when she was young. She was 100% sure that Su Shirhan was her long-lost daughter. However, even after knowing this, the old dean didn't dare to contact Su Shirhan and acknowledge her, because she knew that Dongfang Xiaocui was a jealous person. That year, she brought her brother's 4 great warriors, Dongfang Jian, Dongfang Hard, Dongfang Cha, and Dongfang Song, and almost killed her. Any one of these 4 people could have killed her. If it wasn't for Feng Tianlin rushing over to protect her, she wouldn't have been able to escape at all. But Su Shirhan was missing. Thinking about it, Feng Tianlin must have secretly protected and raised her. Chapter 32:16. In fact, no one knew that Su Shirhan became a star, because she wanted to find her mother. She didn't know the truth. She hoped that her frequent appearances could let her mother see, and one day her mother would come to find her. So, when the dean found out that Su Shirhan would come to the orphanage to perform, she was both excited and hesitant. She was afraid that if she interacted with Su Shirhan, not only would she hurt herself, but she would also hurt Su Shirhan and the orphanage. Dongfang Xiaocui, that jealous woman, would she let Su Shirhan go? Would she let her go? Who knows, maybe the children of the orphanage would be dragged into it. Although the original intention of the orphanage was to find Su Shirhan, after so many years, she had fallen in love with the children of the orphanage. She was afraid that these children would be in danger and trouble. But what she didn't expect was that Su Shirhan recognized her. "Miss Su, what are you talking about? Is your mother here?" The dean pretended to be calm. She didn't want to expose her identity, so she asked with a hopeful heart, Mistress Feng San Huang, who had been standing at the door, quickly walked over and bowed. I finally found you. San Huang? The dean knew that she couldn't hide it anymore. She knew Feng San Huang. Back when she was dating Feng Tianlin, Feng San Huang was Feng Tianlin's follower. However, she was from the thief sect, and the Feng family looked down on a petty thief like her. In addition, the eldest son of the Feng family had run away from the marriage. The Feng family had to have someone marry into the Dongfeng family. Otherwise, the Dongfeng family would seek revenge. After all, it was Feng family who begged Dongfeng family for the marriage, but now that Feng family ran away, where would Dongfeng family's face go? In order to appease Dongfeng family, Feng family would definitely accept the marriage. So Feng Tianlin replaced his elder brother and married Dongfeng Xiaocui. Feng Tianlin was a weak person, and he couldn't refuse his father's expectant gaze. Dongfeng Xiaocui from Dongfeng family also chose Feng Tianlin after seeing the photos of the other people from Feng family. She felt that Feng Tianlin was a more refined person, unlike Feng Tianhu, who was sneaky, so Dongfeng family decided to let Dongfeng Xiaocui marry Feng Tianlin. Under such circumstances, Feng Tianlin had no choice but to make a difficult decision, which was to marry Dongfeng Xiaocui. The dean understood Feng Tianlin's situation. He knew that with her identity, it was impossible for her to officially marry into the Feng family, but she could still be a concubine. After all, the cultivation world maintained the ancient customs. Having multiple wives was normal, but she didn't expect Dongfeng Xiaocui to be a jealous person. She brought people to assassinate her and Su Shirhan. When he thought of all these things, he felt as if it was just yesterday. When he saw Feng San Huang, the old dean finally recognized his identity, but he was a little puzzled. How did you manage to recognize me? She felt strange. San Huang, how did you recognize me? You and Xiaohan should know me? Mistress, take a look at your current appearance. Feng San Huang was slightly taken aback as he finally understood why the old dean would ask such a question. He had also recognized the old dean as Feng Tianlin's lover from the changes in her appearance. After listening to Feng San Huang's words, the old dean was also slightly stunned. He turned his head to look at the mirror in the room and was immediately stunned. Wasn't this how she looked when she was young? No wonder Su Shirhan and Feng San Huang recognized him. She looked too much like Su Shirhan right now. Oh well, Amos couldn't help but sigh inwardly. It looked like he had no choice but to admit it, since she couldn't hide it anymore. All the yearning she'd hidden in the deepest part of her heart rushed out. She hugged Su Shirhan and cried, "Shirhan, my child." Su Shirhan heard the dean admit it herself. She burst into tears as well. Hugging the dean and crying together, Lin Yi, Xiaoka, Chung Yi, and San Huang all stood on the side, not saying a word. This was too much of a shock. The dean was Su Shirhan's mother. When Su Shirhan and the dean were done crying, the dean sighed and smiled helplessly. "Xiaohan, you really shouldn't have come here. You've exposed your identity, and my identity will be exposed as well. You don't know how jealous that woman from House Dongfang is. She can't wait to get rid of us. We aren't her match." Dongfang Xiaocui. Su Shirhan paused for a second and guessed what was going on. So it was Dongfang Xiaocui that caused her to be separated from her mother, and they also beat her mother up. You know her? The dean was surprised. He didn't think that Su Shirhan would know about this, but after thinking about it, he understood. Tianlin raised you, right? Tianlin should have told you about this, right? It seems like Dongfang Xiaocui hasn't killed you yet. No. Su Shirhan shook her head. I've always known about Dad's business. San Huang Bro was sent by Dad to protect me, and I grew up under Dad's protection. But I only found out about this recently because Dongfang Xiaocui made a move on me. What? She made a move on you? The dean was shocked. After all these years, she still doesn't want to let us go. Sigh. What should we do? At this point, the dean seemed to have made an important decision. Lin E. Xiaoka will be under your protection from now onwards. I'm going back. I'm going to find Dongfang Xiaocui. As long as I'm dead, the orphanage will be safe. Xiao Han, on the other hand, is under Tianlin's protection. She shouldn't be in much danger. Since nothing happened after all these years, I think Dongfang Xiaocui's target is just me. The dean understood. She wanted to use her death to exchange for Su Shirhan and the orphanage's safety. Ah, why? Su Shirhan paused. With Lin Yi protecting us, we don't have to be afraid. Chapter 32:17. So she continued, let's not talk about that. Under Dongfang Xiaocui's big brother, Dongfang Jingxing, are 4 powerful elders. They're called the 4 great warriors. They're Dongfang Jian, Dongfang Har, Dongfang Cha, and Dongfang Song. They're all heaven class. We're not their opponents. Pfft. San Huang couldn't recognize Dongfang Yinxing and the 4 great warriors, and he started laughing. It must be said that the Dongfang clan was really unlucky. These ruthless people were all dead. This was their retribution for what they did to the mistress and Su Shirhan. San Huang, what are you laughing at? The dean frowned. She hadn't been by Feng Tianlin's side for many years, but she was still his lover. San Huang called her the mistress, and he dared to laugh at her? The dean was angry. San Huang, you don't know how strong these people are. Do you? Mom. Shirhan knew that Feng San Huang wasn't laughing at the dean. He was laughing at the Dongfang family's bad luck. So she quickly explained, San Huang bro isn't laughing at you. He's laughing at the Dongfang family. Laughing at the Dongfang family? The dean paused, then frowned. San Huang, what do you mean? Mom, the people you just mentioned are all dead. Shirhan quickly explained. Dead? What dead? Han, you said the Dongfang family died. The dean's eyes widened, looking at Shirhan in disbelief. How could they die? She didn't have any source of information, but she could still find out about the Dongfang family from time to time. The Dongfang family was like the sun in the sky. How could they die? Dongfang Yinxing, Dongfang Jian, Dongfang Har, Dongfang Cha, Dongfang Song. They all came to kill me, but Lin Yi killed them. Shirhan thought about it now and found it unbelievable. Any one of these people was a nightmare for her and her mom, but Lin Yi killed them like he was slaughtering chickens. He killed 1, 2 came, 2 came, 2 came, and Dongfang Xiaocui had to beg Lin Yi for mercy through Feng Shirshan. The Dongfang clan had also disappeared without a trace. There was no movement at all. Lin Yi, you're in the Tao of Heaven now. The dean was stunned. Dongfang Yinxing was a peak late-stage heaven rank expert, a top-notch expert in the cultivation world. How strong was Lin Yi to kill him? How strong was Lin Yi? Wouldn't that mean that he was an elite in the Tao of Heaven? No. Lin Yi smiled bitterly and said, Brother Feng, you should say it. Feng San Huang nodded and told the dean about how Lin Yi was able to fight above his level, and how Dongfang Xiaocui sent people to assassinate Su Shirhan. The more O.L. Amos listened, the more excited he became. She didn't expect that every member of the Dongfang family would die one after another. In the end, not only did they not even dare to fart, Dongfang Xiaocui even pleaded with Lin Yi through her son. She felt that she could finally hold her head high. Truly, there was always a higher mountain. In front of him, these ruthless people who swaggered around were nothing in front of Lin Yi. Did that mean that her and Su Shirhan's crisis was resolved? She let out a long sigh of relief. Finally, everything was fine. The dark clouds parted to reveal the clear sky. He could finally appear with his previous identity. Lin Yi, thank you. You're not only the orphanage's benefactor, but also our family's benefactor. Thank you. The dean looked at Lin Yi and said sincerely, All right, let's not talk about this. Whether it's because of you Xiaoka or Su Shirhan, I can't just ignore you. Linny waved his hand and said nonchalantly, "Now I'll help you recover your strength." "Okay." The dean nodded quickly. "Then what do I do now?" "Just use the chant you've been practicing. Leave the rest to me." Linny said, "Now?" "Okay." The dean responded and started to use the chant she'd been practicing. Then she felt a continuous stream of pure chi from the place where Lin-Yi was holding her pulse, entering her meridians. The dean was shocked, but she didn't dare to say anything. She quickly continued to use the chant, and soon she realized that her strength had reached the peak of the late phase of the golden class. Because the dean was an earth class before, there wasn't any barrier between levels. As long as she had enough pure chi, she could naturally level up. Thus, it was much easier for her to break through from the peak of the late phase to the early phase of the mystic class compared to other practitioners in front of Su Shihan, Cheng Yi, and Feng Sanhuang. Lin-Yi didn't even try to hide the dean's strength. But Yu Xiaoka's eyes flashed with doubt. It was the first time she knew that Lin-Yi could help others level up, but for some reason, Yu Xiaoka recalled the time in the tomb. At that time, the male thief seemed to have the ability to help others level up. At the very least, the strength of the female thief and the followers seemed to have suddenly increased in the tomb, but Yu Xiaoka wasn't too sure, and so the thought flashed through her mind. Feng Sanhuang, on the other hand, had some understanding of Lin-Yi. Lin-Yi leveled up quickly, and Lin-Yi's lackeys leveled up quickly as well. But Feng Sanhuang wasn't someone that Lin-Yi was familiar with, so he didn't ask much. Now, it seemed that Lin-Yi's lackey's strength was most likely increased by Lin-Yi. Feng Sanhuang was a little envious at the thought. Lin-Yi could actually increase people's strength? How many superpowers did Lin-Yi have? Cheng Yi's eyes flashed with shock. She knew about practitioners and how difficult it was for them to level up, but now it seemed like it wasn't a problem for Lin-Yi at all. Soon, the dean's strength rose from the golden class all the way to the earth class. It even exceeded her original strength, the early phase of the earth class. She suddenly realized that her strength had exceeded the early phase of the earth class, and only stopped when she reached the late phase peak. Chapter 32:18. Really? I really leveled up? I'm an Earth class late phase peak master? Although the dean had long felt that her strength had increased to Earth class late phase peak, she still felt like she was in a dream after hearing Lin-Yi's words. What she was experiencing right now had overturned her decades of knowledge. Even in the ancient sects, there shouldn't be someone like Lin-Yi, right? Not only could he repair damaged meridians, but he could also help others increase their strength. Of course, that didn't count. Just the fact that Lin-Yi could instantly kill a Sky class late phase peak master was something that other practitioners could only dream of. The dean couldn't help but sigh at the thought. Her disciple and daughter were really lucky to meet such a magical master. If it wasn't for Lin-Yi, the orphanage would have been destroyed by Zhao Qibing, right? Xiaoka would have had to take up the dangerous profession of tomb raiding, and she might have already died in the tomb's traps. Her daughter, Su Shihan, would have been killed by House Dongfang a long time ago, but with Lin-Yi here, everything was different. Lin-Yi was like her savior, saving her daughter and disciple. They were the two most important people to the dean. Master, you're really an Earth class late phase peak master now. Xiaoka was a little envious. Xiaoka, didn't your brother say that he was going to give you an ancestral art? Don't worry. Lin-Yi looked at Xiaoka and smiled. Did he give it to you? Yes. He's hiding House Yu, but it's not good for him to resign directly, so he's looking for an opportunity. Xiaoka said. House Yu, Lin-Yi was afraid of them before, but now House Yu was nothing in his eyes. With his true strength, it would be easy to destroy House Yu, but House Yu was related to Heavenly Elixir Sect, so Lin-Yi didn't want to make things too tense. After all, Silkworm transformation had helped him many times, and Lin-Yi really didn't know if Silkworm transformation was on his side, or an enemy. Thank you. The old dean said, sincerely, I thought that I wouldn't be able to live for more than 2 years. Unexpectedly, not only have I recovered from my injuries, but my strength has also increased. It's nothing. Linny waved his hand and said, Oh, well, President, you and Xiao Han have just reunited, so you must have a lot to talk about, right? How about this? You talk to Xiao Han first. I'll take Xiao Ku to buy some clothes. All right, then you can bring Xiao Ku along. The dean nodded. She had a really good impression of Lin Yi, so she reminded Xiao Ka, don't always have that sad face. Cheer up. Yes, master. Xiao Ka could ignore other people's words, but she still cared about the dean's words. She nodded and said to Lin Yi, then, let's go. This was what she had agreed to before, so she couldn't refuse now. Lin Yi glanced at Cheng Yi and asked, Do you want to go with me, Yi? I won't go. I'll go check out the hall and the gymnasium myself. Cheng Yi said, All right, call me if there's anything. Lin Yi said and prepared to leave with Xiaoka. Su Shihan looked at Lin Yi with a complicated expression. This man had helped her so many times. She was very grateful. In the past, she only felt gratitude towards Lin Yi because of the trauma from her childhood. Su Shihan didn't think about love at all. But now that she found her mother, she let go of the stone in her heart. All of a sudden, she realized that she was a little moved towards Lin. Yes, Su Shihan was a normal girl. Lin Yi had saved her many times, and he even helped her find her mother. Although it was a freak accident, Lin Yi healed her mother's injuries and increased her mother's strength. Su Shihan couldn't help but feel grateful. However, Su Shihan realized that Lin Yi treated Xiaoka a little differently. Could it be that Lin Yi liked Xiaoka? With that thought, Su Shihan couldn't help but flinch. She didn't care if Lin Yi had other girlfriends, but Xiaoka was her mother's disciple. She wanted to steal her mother's disciple's man? Su Shihan shook her head and suppressed the emotions in her heart. Then she talked to the dean about the things that happened after they were separated all these years. Lin Yi brought Xiaoka out of the orphanage. On the way, Xiaoka was silent. Lin Yi knew what she was thinking and found it funny. Are we driving or walking? Either is fine. Xiaoka was a little absent-minded. From what she saw, her relationship with Lin Yi would be complicated from now on. She had received more and more gifts from him, and she didn't know if Lin Yi took her seriously or not. Then let's walk. We'll take it as a stroll. It had been a long time since Lin Yi strolled on the streets like today. As time went on, it had been almost a year since he came to Songshan and Donghai. In this period of time, Lin Yi had been busy with training and company matters. He hadn't strolled on the streets for a long time. Returning to Songshan, Lin Yi was very emotional. He couldn't help but think of the first time he met Wang Xinyan, Meng Yao, and Yushu. Lin Yi walked in front, and Xiaoka followed behind like a punching bag. Xiaoka waited for a while, but Lin Yi didn't say anything. She didn't know what Lin Yi was thinking. Xiaoka was a little nervous, and now Lin Yi didn't say anything. Xiaoka couldn't wait any longer. Hey, Lin Yi, if you want me to be your lover, just say it. I'll agree. Xiaoka said after hesitating for a long while, I know that in your eyes, I'm a bad girl. I took so much money from you, but I didn't give you a clear answer, as if you're a rich guy. Actually, I'm really grateful to you. From the bottom of my heart. I didn't say yes because I already have someone I like, but you saved my master and helped the orphanage so much. No matter how bad I am, I can't keep dragging this on. Xiaoka said these words with great decision. After all, she felt that what she was doing was very unfair to Lin Yi. After thinking about it, she decided to accept her fate. As for her love with the male thief, it could only continue in the next life. For the orphanage, for the dean, she could give up on herself. Chapter 32:19. Xiaoka finally made up her mind and said those words, but this guy didn't seem to care at all. Did he really not hear it, or was he just messing with her? Xiaoka, you need to pay attention to your image right now. Of course, I won't ask you to wear expensive clothes, just casual clothes will do. Lin Yi didn't ask what Xiaoka said and said to himself, "Oh." Xiaoka really didn't have the courage to repeat what she said just now. She stomped her feet angrily. "Since you can't hear me, then don't blame me. I'll just go like the male thief. If you want to be a sucker, then do as you please." Humph! Xiaoka finally found a reason to continue being naughty. Who told Lin Yi not to hear her? Lin Yi brought Xiaoka to the business district. They didn't go to those expensive shopping malls, but to the night market. The clothes here were quite good, but the price wasn't too expensive. Lin Yi brought Xiaoka to a stall and was about to choose clothes for her, but the stall owner looked at Lin Yi and said, "Bro, you're here again?" Lin Yi paused. Could this be a common sales tactic used by the vendors? He didn't mind it. After all, many hotels were like this. It was the first time, but the waiter said he was here again. It was also a marketing method. "I say, bro, did you forget about me?" The stall owner saw that Lin Yi didn't react and continued, "Did you forget? You bought a dress for me last year?" "Me?" Lin Yi pointed at himself, stunned. "I bought a dress from you? Yeah. Did you forget? You said we came together the first year. At old Chang's place. You said you used to set up a stall at the night market on the south side of the bridge." The stall owner nodded firmly. "You even told me that my sister-in-law is about to give birth." "Boss, did you get the wrong person?" Lin Yi really couldn't remember if he had any dealings with the stall owner of the night market. Moreover, when did Lin Yi set up a stall on the south side of the bridge? How is this possible? The stall owner was bored out of his mind. Now that he had finally met an acquaintance, he wanted to chat a little to relieve his boredom. Hence he persisted, "Did you forget that there was a pretty girl in a school uniform next to you? She said she was from the food street?" "A vendor on the food street?" Lin Yi was even more baffled. "Yes, she's quite a pretty girl. I even asked around and found out that her name is Tang Yun. She's the prettiest girl in Songshan's first high school." "Oh, you can't know her, even if I told you. What I mean is, you still haven't remembered." The stall owner nagged. "Tang Yun?" Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat when he heard the name, and in his memory, it was as if something was pricked. Fragmented images appeared in his mind. It seemed like he was indeed squatting in front of the stall, bargaining with the stall owner, and there really seemed to be a young girl standing beside him. But the impression was very vague. He couldn't remember what the young girl looked like, and he wasn't even sure if he was really bargaining or not. It was just a fragmented memory fragment, but it made Lin Yi's breathing quicken. "I really came here? Did I really talk to the stall owner? But why can't I remember? Also, Tang Yun was the prettiest girl in Songshan's first high school? I'm from Songshan's first high school. How can I not remember anyone called Tang Yun? Did part of my memory disappear? Or did the stall owner really get the wrong person?" Lin Yi started to feel uncertain as well. After all, those fragmented fragments that flashed in that instant could not represent anything. This was because, according to a survey, many people in a strange place that they had never been to would sometimes suddenly have the idea that they had been here before. It was as if they had seen it in a dream. Although he didn't know what caused this feeling of déjà vu, Lin Yi knew that this kind of situation existed. So Lin Yi couldn't be sure at that moment. Yu Xiaoka didn't know the truth. She thought that the stall owner was trying to get more business. After all, she knew that Lin Yi didn't have a child. How could Lin Yi have a wife who was about to give birth? Lin Yi shook his head, stood up, and fell into deep thought. Memory loss. It seemed that sometimes he would suddenly have a situation where something seemed to have happened, but he couldn't remember it. It was when he woke up from the fire poison that Lin Yi had this feeling. Could it be the after effect of the fire poison? But to be sure, Lin Yi still called Yushu. "Shield bro, didn't you go to the orphanage? Why are you calling Shu?" "Shu's at home, talking to Han Jingjing." Yushu picked up the phone quickly. Although Lin Yi's enemies were temporarily in hiding, Yushu didn't go out to cause trouble like before. After Meng Yao left, she seemed to have matured a lot. Lin Yi rarely saw the playful and lively Shu anymore. Although the way she addressed him and the tone didn't change, Lin Yi could feel that Shu had changed. Now? Okay. The dean replied and started channeling her practitioner's arts. After that, she felt a continuous flow of pure qi from Lin Yi's hand to her pulse. Right, Shu, can I ask you something? Songshan First School Beauty. Is there someone called Tang Yin? Lin Yi asked. Yushu was shocked, but she didn't show it on her face. Isn't the school beauty of Songshan First School me? And Yao Yao sis? What Tang Yun? Oh, I don't remember her. Lin Yi calmed down after hearing Yushu's words. The stall owner must have gotten the wrong person. Or was he trying to get close to Lin? So he didn't say anything more. He picked 2 clothes for Xiaoke and left the stall after paying. The stall owner could tell that Lin Yi wasn't interested in talking to him. Could it be that he got the wrong person? Otherwise, why would Lin Yi not know anything? Chapter 32:20. Otherwise, even if Lin Yi wanted to buy it, she would ask Lin Yi to give her the money and buy it herself at the night market, earning some money from Lin Yi to subsidize the orphanage. Lin Yi saw Xiaoke's lack of interest. She probably came out with him because she had no other choice, right? First, there was someone to buy clothes for her, and second, the dean's health had recovered. Xiaoke was very grateful to him, so she did this. With that thought, Lin Yi didn't want Xiaoke to be unhappy, so he smiled. Xiaoke, I have something to do. Here's 1,000 kuai. You can walk around here by yourself. I'll leave first. Oh, okay. Xiaoke didn't think that Lin Yi would say that, but she still happily took the 1,000 kuai from Lin Yi. She only needed 200 to 300 kuai to buy her own clothes, and the remaining 700 to 800 could subsidize the orphanage. Of course, she was happy. Plus, walking with Lin Yi was a bit awkward, and she didn't know what to say. Now that Lin Yi left, she let out a breath of relief. She didn't think that Lin Yi would leave so quickly, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Xiaoke shook her head and started walking around the night market aimlessly. In fact, Xiaoke rarely shopped before, and even if she did, it was to find a target to steal from. She never thought about buying anything herself. It was her first time shopping purely for herself. Beauty, are you alone? Do you need someone to accompany you? Xiaoke was walking around aimlessly when a voice entered her ears. Her heart skipped a beat, but there wasn't the disgust of being teased. Instead, there was an inexplicable surprise. Xiaoke turned around quickly. Male thief, it's you? Why are you here? Lin Yi had already put on the 1,000 silk mask, and his current appearance was the real appearance he had when he first met Xiaoke. I went to do something, but I suddenly saw you, so I came to say hi and see if you need someone to accompany you, Lin Yi said. All right. Xiaoke nodded shyly and happily, but her heart sank after nodding. She just told Lin Yi that she was going to be Lin Yi's mistress, and it wouldn't be good if something happened between her and the male thief. She might have thought that she was a pregnant girl and that she'd always scammed Lin Yi out of his money, but she was still a trustworthy person. Since she'd promised Lin Yi, it didn't matter if he'd hurt her or not, or if he'd agreed to it or not. Even though she really wanted to go shopping with the male thief, she had to tell him the truth. By the way, male thief, I have something to tell you. What is it? Lin Yi paused, confused by Xiaoke's serious expression. I've told you before, right? There's a person called Lin Yi who's sponsoring our orphanage, and he seems to be interested in me. Xiaoke hesitated. Oh, what's wrong? Lin Yi was even more puzzled. Why would Xiaoke bring this up? I promised him that I would be his mistress. Although he didn't hear me clearly, I did tell him. Plus, he cured the dean's illness, and he's been helping me and the orphanage nonstop. I can't lie to him anymore. So, this is the only way to repay him. Xiaoke sighed. a little embarrassed. I'm sorry, male thief, we aren't fated to be together. In the next life, I'll be able to truly belong to myself, and I'll be with you again. Lin Yi was a little shocked. He didn't think that Xiaoke would consider so much. Plus, Xiaoke's words made him feel a little apologetic. At first, he wanted to keep it a secret, and then he decided to play along with it. Now, he couldn't explain the truth. He didn't know how to tell Xiaoke that he was the male thief, and he could only sigh. Lin Yi, should I talk to him? It's no use. My brother seems to be on his side, and I owe him so much. I don't believe that there's such a good thing in this world that I don't need anything in return. So, I don't think there's any point in talking to him. Xiaoke said helplessly. Haha, how would you know if you haven't talked to him? Lin Yi smiled bitterly. He didn't think that Xiaoke had such a deep prejudice against him. Chapter 32:21. Of course, Lin Yi was a factor in this, but he didn't need to worry too much. Lin Yi was in Donghai City, not Songshan City, and Lin Yi was Su Shihan's bodyguard, not the dean's. Even if Lin Yi attended the dean's funeral, he wouldn't be able to keep an eye on Feng Tianlin and Feng Shipian all the time. At that time, he just needed to find a chance to kill Feng Tianlin and Feng Shipian. However, it couldn't be the Feng family's people, and it definitely couldn't be Feng Tianhu's people. So he had to find someone else to do it, other than the Blood Cloth Underworld sect, an ancient assassination organization. Feng Tianhu actually had a candidate in mind, although he wasn't assassinating Lin Yi this time, but the dean, Feng Tianlin, and Feng Shipian. He had already offended the Blood Cloth Underworld sect. He didn't think that the Blood Cloth Underworld sect would help him anymore, and it would be terrible if the news leaked out. Therefore, this time, Feng Tianhu made up his mind and contacted the most despicable organization in the ancient sects, the Black Horse Society. The Black Horse Society's predecessor was actually a gang, but this gang had developed to this day and moved behind the scenes. Of course, this sect also did some killing and robbing in the mortal world, but it was more secretive. Most of them worked as guards for rich families. For example, Uncle Yen from Zhou Roming's family was a member of the Black Horse Society. Because the people sent by the Black Horse Society were very low level, most of them were yellow class and mystic class, it didn't attract the dissatisfaction of other ancient sections. Of course, they occasionally did some revenge business, such as helping an ancient sect fight, helping to teach someone a lesson, and so on. Anyway, such a gray sect didn't attract the jealousy of others. After all, it was an organization with the nature of a gang, similar to the Blood Cloth Underworld sect. Sometimes people could find them to do things that they couldn't do, but when it was free, people didn't want to get involved with them. Feng Tianhu naturally thought of the Black Horse Society. The Black Horse Association's requirements were very high. If the Black Horse Association were to act, not only would they have to pay a large sum of money, but they would also have to promise the Black Horse Association one thing. If the Black Horse Association had any requests in the future, the employer would have to agree. Of course, this matter would not be particularly difficult. It was within the employer's ability, but it might not be easy to do it. It could be done or not, but since the Black Horse Association requested it, it must be done. This kind of favor was actually the hardest to repay. Therefore, if he could solve it himself, he would solve it himself. If he couldn't, he would look for the blood-clothed Yellow Spring sect. If the blood-clothed Yellow Spring sect couldn't solve it, he would look for the Dark Horse Association. The Black Horse gang relied on this relationship to eat faster in the ancient world. Many people owed them favors, so they wouldn't openly express their dissatisfaction with the Black Horse gang. Therefore, the Black Horse gang sent experts to the secular world to act as guards to earn money. Everyone turned a blind eye to this. This time, Feng Tianhu really didn't have anyone else, so he could only look for the Black Horse Society. Another advantage of the Black Horse Society was that they would never betray their employer, so Feng Tianhu didn't have to worry about being betrayed. Of course, unless he couldn't pay or refused the Black Horse Society's request one day. This matter would only be exposed by the Black Horse Society. There was also a precedent for this. So Feng Tianhu hesitated again and again before he made up his mind. Hello. Is this the third brother of the Black Horse Society, Brother Jian? Feng Tianhu found a business card of the Black Horse Society. This was the business card he received at the summit of the ancient sects and families. Are you Feng Tianhu from the ancient Feng family? Brother Jian was the third leader of the Black Horse Society and was also in charge of external communications. Every time he exchanged contact information with others, he would save the other party's contact information. Therefore, when Feng Tianhu called Brother Jian knew Feng Tianhu's identity. It's me. Brother Jian still remembers me. Feng Tianhu was surprised and happy. Naturally, he didn't know Brother Dian's habits and thought that he was a big shot. Brother Jian, this time, I have something to ask the Black Horse Society for. You know the conditions, right? Other than the reward, you have to agree to one condition regardless of whether it's successful or not. Brother Jian said, of course we will evaluate the manpower and the reward based on the difficulty of the task you mentioned. We don't want it to fail. After all, failure will affect our reputation. It's good that you know. Brother Jian continued. Tell me, what's the matter? Help me kill a few people, a total of 3, Feng Tianhu said. Brother Jian wasn't surprised at all. After all, he was in the business of killing and robbing. One is the old dean of the Songshan orphanage. The other 2 are my second brother Feng Tianlin and nephew Feng Shipian. Feng Tianhu said, the old dean of the orphanage? We don't make a move on ordinary people, but the other 2 can. Brother Jian said directly, making a move on ordinary people is too troublesome. Although we don't avoid it, Songshan is a very troublesome place. It's very close to Donghai City. You should know about Lin Yi. We don't want to mess with that person. The Black Horse Society was also very well informed. Donghai City and Songshan City were both Lin Yi's strongholds. Wouldn't it be troublesome if they made a move on an ordinary person? Therefore, they tried not to get involved in this kind of thing. The old dean of the orphanage is my second brother Feng, Tianlin's lover. He's an Earth-class late-phase peak master. He's not an ordinary person. Feng Tianhu said, this is also what I want to remind you. Try not to clash with Lin Yi. After you kill the old dean, hide and wait for my second brother and nephew to take care of the aftermath before you deal with them. I'm telling the truth here. If you insist on going against Lin Yi, don't blame me. This mission is too risky. Brother Jian didn't know that the old dean was Su Shihan's mother. He didn't connect Su Shihan with the old dean, but just Donghai City and Songshan City were enough for him to not accept this mission. This is a series of missions. If the old dean doesn't die, Feng Tianlin and Feng Shipian won't be able to leave our ancient Feng family. You guys won't be able to kill them. Feng Tianhu said, and after they die, I'll be the heir of the ancient Feng family. Wouldn't it be even more powerful if I promise you one thing? The promise of an ancient family's patriarch and the promise of an ordinary member naturally cannot be mentioned in the same breath. The things that the 2 can accomplish are also different. Chapter 32:22. If Feng Tianhu could really become the head of the Feng family, then the Black Horse Gang would look for him to do big things in the future. However, Feng Tianhu was not the head of the family, so he could only do ordinary things. This was the value of this mission. How about it? Anyway, I've already explained the pros and cons. If you agree, then do it as soon as possible. If not, then pretend I didn't say anything. Feng Tianhu said, I'll discuss it with the other 2 leaders, then I'll call you back. Brother Jian said after hesitating for a moment, Okay, I'll wait for your news. Feng Tianhu quickly said, No matter what, there was a chance. The Black Horse Gang was actually full of desperados. Although this mission was risky, the rewards were obvious. Not to mention the High Commission. Feng Tianhu's promise after becoming the head of the family was also very important. Therefore, after evaluating the difficulty of the mission, Brother Jian called Feng Tianhu back. Brother Jian. Feng Tianhu picked up the phone and asked respectfully, "How is it? Is there any news?" "Mr. Feng Tianhu, our leader has agreed to this mission, but I have to talk to you about the commission." Brother Jian said, "Please speak." Feng Tianhu was surprised and happy when he heard that the Black Horse Gang had agreed. That's because it's Lin Yi's territory. In order to ensure the safety of our people, we've sent a Sky-class late-phase peak full-circle master. He's one of the grand elders of our Black Horse Gang, so the price is a bit higher. Lightning Bros said, Good. Feng Tianhu was originally afraid that the Black Horse Gang would send a few small fries. If they encountered Lin Yi, they wouldn't be Lin Yi's opponent. Now, it was great. A peak late-stage heaven stage master was sent out. This was an existence like an atomic bomb. As for the price, it was worth it. So he quickly said, "What's the price?" "Tell me." 10 billion. And a promise. Brother Jian said, "Uff. Cough, cough, cough." Feng Tianhu was shocked. "Brother Jian, are you kidding? Do I look like someone with 10 billion? Although I have some savings, it's only about 2 billion. Among the ancient sects, the Fengs weren't considered rich. Even with Feng Tianhu's side business, they had only accumulated around 2 billion. 10 billion? Wasn't that a joke?" "You don't, but the Feng family does." Brother Jian said indifferently, "The Feng family, what I say doesn't count. Besides, our Feng family doesn't have that much money. Most of my money is my own extra income. I supported a few spokespeople outside. Some are businessmen, some are celebrities, and some are guards. They help me earn money, but I only managed to save 2 billion. Feng Tianhu explained with a bitter smile. "Then how much money does the Feng family have?" Brother Jian frowned. He didn't expect the Feng family to be so poor. However, this 10 billion was also an exorbitant price waiting to be bargained. "I think it's about 3 billion in cash." Feng Tianhu didn't dare to hide it. After all, what he knew, others could also find out. 2 billion plus 3 billion, that's a total of 5 billion. All right, you can give us 2 billion first, and then give us the 3 billion after you become the head of the family. Is that okay? Brother Jian asked. Although 5 billion was a bit too much, Brother Jian felt that it was worth it. After all, sending a supreme elder to kill 3 people was as easy as lifting a finger. Although it was a bit dangerous to step into Lin Yi's territory, as long as they were careful, there wouldn't be any problems. All right. Feng Tianhu gritted his teeth and agreed. After all, when he became the head of the family, he would change the Feng family's current strategy and send more people to earn money. At that time, he would also fill in the gap. All right, send me the information on the old dean. Our supreme elder will leave today and take action tomorrow. Brother Jian said. Feng Tianhu didn't expect the other party to be so efficient. He was a bit surprised, but to him, this was the best thing. He quickly sent the information to the mailbox designated by Brother Jian and waited for the good news. Lin Yi and Yu Xiaoka strolled around the night market for a while before going back. Lin Yi saw that Yu Xiaoka seemed to have no interest today. She seemed to have a lot on her mind, and his heart felt heavy. After all, it was his fault. But how should he tell her? If he told her that Lin Yi was the male thief, would she be unable to accept it? After sending Yu Xiaoka back to the orphanage as the male thief, Lin Yi changed back to his original identity and returned to the orphanage. Su Shihan and the dean had already finished catching up, and she was rehearsing with Chung Yi in the gymnasium. Lin Yi went to take a look, but he couldn't help much. Yu Xiaoka obviously didn't want to talk to him either, so Lin Yi found a room and started training. He had been stuck at the early phase of Sky class for a while now, but there were no signs of a breakthrough. Lin Yi couldn't help but sigh. After Sky class, every step was really difficult, especially without Wang Xinyan's help. Lin Yi's training speed had dropped to the lowest point. At night, Lin Yi and the others stayed at the orphanage. There was no need for Lin Yi to bring Su Shihan and Cheng Yi back and forth between the two cities. There wasn't enough time anyway. It was a quiet night. And the next day, at 10 in the morning, the charity event officially began. Although the last charity event was organized by the school, and it wasn't that far from this one, it was still in Donghai. This time, it was Songshan, so there were many rich people who came to support the event. On the surface, it looked like it was the influence of a celebrity, but in reality, it was all Peng Zhan's doing. Peng Zhan was the chairman of the province's business association and a supporter of House Han. His influence in the province was unparalleled, and who dared to ignore House Han when doing business in the province? As a result, most of the businessmen who came this time were here because of Peng Zhan, and also because of Han Xiaopa. Of course, with their level, they didn't know that Lin Yi was the real boss behind the scenes. Han Xiaopa was only Lin Yi's follower, while Lin Yi was someone who could shake the ancient world with a stomp of his foot. The fundraiser was a huge success. After the fundraiser, it was time for Su Shihan and Cheng Yi's charity concert. All the money from the concert would be used for the construction of the orphanage. Fans could also donate to a designated account through online banking. Chapter 32-23. The last time they came to the concert, it was him, Miss Xu, and Xiao Xiao, right? At that time, Su Shihan was having a headache, and he helped her backstage. In the blink of an eye, things had changed. Miss left, Xiao Xiao left, Xu also left, and Su Shihan, after finding her mother, her headache should be gone by now, right? The concert was exceptionally successful. Su Shihan and Cheng Yi were very good at stirring up the atmosphere of the scene. The two cooperated well and pushed the concert to its climax step by step. When the concert ended, it was already 10 p.m. Lin Yi didn't rush, but stayed with Su Shihan and Cheng Yi at the orphanage. But Cheng Yi obviously wanted to go back to Donghai City. On the way back to the dorm, Cheng Yi tried to persuade Su Shihan to leave. Xiaohan, why don't we go back to Donghai City? You're not used to living here? Cheng Yi tried to persuade her for the last time. You're not going, right? I'm quite tired, you two, right? Su Shihan didn't understand why Cheng Yi insisted on leaving. Plus, I just reunited with my mom. I don't want to leave so early. I see. Cheng Yi was a bit disappointed. Lin Yi looked at Cheng Yi deeply. Cheng Yi jumped and quickly shut her mouth, but Lin Yi didn't say anything and went upstairs with them. At the door of the dorm, Cheng Yi saw Su Shihan walking towards the dean's room. Obviously, Su Shihan was going to stay with the dean tonight, so she quickly said, Xiaohan, let's sleep together tonight. Yi, what's wrong with you today? Su Shihan looked at Cheng Yi strangely. When we were in Donghai City, didn't we sleep together every day? I'll sleep with my mom tonight. Okay? No, I mean, Cheng Yi was a little anxious and didn't know what to say. Then you three can sleep together. Lin Yi looked at Cheng Yi and suddenly said, Sure. I also want to chat with the dean and listen to your childhood stories. Xiaohan. Cheng Yi heard Lin Yi's suggestion and immediately nodded. Ah, okay. Su Shihan had no choice but to let Cheng Yi follow her into the old dean's room. Lin Yi watched as Cheng Yi and Su Shihan walked into the dean's room. At night, Lin Yi activated the third level of the art of dragon mastery, absorbing true qi from the space in the jade pendant. The effect was already very slow, almost negligible. What Lin Yi needed now was an opportunity to level up, but it wasn't easy to find this opportunity. Midnight. Suddenly, Lin Yi sensed someone approaching the dormitory. Tonight, when Lin Yi saw Cheng Yi's abnormal reaction, he was already vigilant. So, when this person approached, Lin Yi felt it. However, this person's level of strength left Lin Yi aghast. A perfect Heaven Realm Peak late-stage expert. Songsan, where did such an expert come from? Who was he after? Was it himself or Su Shirhan? Lin Yi frowned. If this person wasn't after Lin Yi, then he could still escape if he wanted to. If he wanted to run, he could, but if he wanted to take Su Shirhan with him, it was almost impossible. And this person was after Lin Yi. That Lin Yi had nowhere to run, and he wanted to escape from a Heaven Realm Peak late-stage expert. Wouldn't that be a dream? Lin Yi took a deep breath. Why was he so unlucky to meet such a master? This time, he probably wouldn't be as lucky as before. The blood-clothed underworld sex master could help. This time, he could only rely on himself. Force? No way. Outsmarting? It seemed that in the face of absolute power, intelligence was useless at this moment. Lin Yi could only pray that this person wasn't after him. But unfortunately, this person came into the dorm as if there was no one there. He directly went up to the floor where Lin Yi was and walked towards Lin Yi's room. This person's movement was extremely fast. From the time Lin Yi found him to the time he appeared outside the hallway, it was only a blink of an eye. How could a Heaven Realm Peak late-stage expert not be fast? But what surprised Lin Yi was that this person didn't enter Lin Yi's room. Instead, he kicked open the old dean's door. Bang! A loud sound pierced the silence of the night. Su Shirhan and the others must have woken up. On Lin Yi's side, his heart was burning with anxiety. He didn't know how to deal with this. Although from the moment he found this person, Lin Yi started to compress the chi bomb, but whether or not it would be effective against this Heaven Realm Peak late-stage expert, Lin Yi wasn't sure. Everyone in the room must die. This Heaven Realm Peak late-stage expert was naturally the great elder of the Black Horse Gang. When he saw that there were 3 people in the room, he couldn't help but be stunned. Didn't they say that the old dean lived alone? In this room, only the old dean was resting? However, the great elder didn't care too much. After all, 3 people and 1 person were the same in his eyes. The old dean's strength was like an ant in his eyes. The other 2 girls didn't seem to be too powerful. Since he saw them, he might as well kill them as well. It was as easy as lifting a finger. The great elder raised his hand and pointed at Su Shirhan. He said indifferently, "You die first." Su Shirhan was shocked. She didn't think that a strange old man would suddenly come in the middle of the night. And from the looks of it, this strange old man wasn't weak. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" The old dean frowned. She felt that the person in front of her wasn't simple. He was a practitioner, but she couldn't feel his specific strength. When the great elder of the Black Horse Gang didn't show his strength, the old dean couldn't see his specific strength. She didn't have Lin Yi's golden finger. The great elder raised his hand and pointed at the old dean. He said indifferently, "You're the old dean of the orphanage, right? Someone paid me to kill you. Die." At this moment, the Grand Supreme Elder's strength was also revealed, causing O.L. Amos to be shocked. Oh my God! The opponent was actually a Heaven Realm Peak late-stage expert. An expert of this level was simply an existence akin to an atomic bomb. He was the king of cultivators and was unparalleled. Chapter 32:24. However, the dean still frowned and asked, "Are you from the Dongfang family or the ancient Feng family?" "Neither. No need to guess. I won't tell you." The great elder shook his head indifferently, as if he didn't want to waste time with the dean. "You can die now." Wait. Shirhan was shocked. She didn't think that a strange old man would come in the middle of the night. And from the looks of it, this old man wasn't weak. The other party wanted to kill her mother. How could Su Shirhan agree? She exclaimed, and subconsciously raised her head to look at the great elder. She asked nervously, "Senior, are you sure you're not mistaken? My mother has no grudge with you. She's just the dean of an orphanage. Why would someone pay to kill her?" "Yeah, did you make a mistake?" Chung-yi didn't think that this person would choose to attack when she and Shirhan were in the room. And with the Black Horse Gang's style of doing things, they either don't make a move or they don't show mercy. In other words, everyone in this room was going to die, including her and Shirhan. This wasn't what Chung-yi wanted to see, so she wanted to retreat. "Han, let's go get Mr. Lin." As she spoke, Chung-yi pulled Su Shirhan towards the door. "What? Want to run?" The Grand Elder mockingly looked at Chung-yi, who was pulling Su Shirhan towards the door, and a cold smile appeared on his face. This caused Chung-yi's footsteps to slow down. Cold sweat immediately broke out on her forehead. "There's no mistake. I don't need you to tell me what to do. And you guys will die too. Everyone in this room will die." The Great Elder looked at Chung-yi and sneered. "Since you're in a hurry to leave, then you die first. I'll send you on your way." Then the Great Elder raised his hand and pointed at Chung-yi, about to kill her. Chung-yi regretted it. She had only said a few words, and the Grand Elder had shifted his target to her. He was ready to kill her. This made Chung-yi feel helpless, but there was nothing she could do. She could only force herself to beg, "Let's talk this out. Is it a misunderstanding?" "No." "Are you looking for my mother?" "I am her daughter. Every debt has its debtor. This is my friend. She is an outsider. It has nothing to do with my mother. Please let her go. Me and my mother can stay here." Shirhan wasn't stupid. The dean was an Earth-class late-phase peak master. She didn't dare to act rashly. The person in front of her must be very powerful, and this person came for her mother. Then Chung-yi was innocent. She didn't want to implicate Chung-yi. So Su Shirhan stood in front of Chung-yi. He protected Chung-yi and said with a determined look in his eyes. Chung-yi was stunned. She never thought that Su Shirhan would appear at this moment. He stood up for her and stood in front of her. At this moment, Chung-yi's nose turned sour. Su Shirhan. She treated her like a real sister, but thinking of this, Chung-yi's tears fell instantly. She stood there, not knowing what to do at this moment. The Great Elder made his move. He pointed his finger at Su Shirhan. A green chi shot out from the Great Elder's fingertip towards Su Shirhan. That chi was boundless. If it hit Su Shirhan's body, she would die for sure. But at this moment, Chung-yi moved. Her body appeared in front of Su Shirhan at an unbelievable speed. She used her body to block the chi shot out by the Great Elder. Boom, dash, Chung-yi's chest had a big hole in it. Chung-yi's whole body flew backwards and smashed into Su Shirhan, but her speed wasn't affected much. Both of them slammed into the wall, making a muffled sound like thunder. PFFF, Su Shirhan spat out a mouthful of blood, although the Zhun Qi didn't land on her, as it was blocked by Chung-yi. Chung-yi's injury was added to Su Shirhan's body. Although Su Shirhan didn't die, her injuries weren't light. She fell to the ground with blood dripping from the corner of her mouth. Even if she wouldn't die immediately, she wouldn't be able to live. Chung-yi was even more so. Although she gritted her teeth and didn't die, she definitely wouldn't be able to live. The reason why she was able to hold on was because she wanted to say sorry to Su Shirhan. At this moment, she was going to die. But before she died, she had to say something to her good sister. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to die in peace. Actually, what happened in the room happened in the blink of an eye. Lin Yi felt at the moment the Great Elder entered the old dean's room. He reacted immediately, but everything happened too fast. It was just a few words and a few seconds, and the Great Elder made his move. Lin Yi's chi bomb wasn't compressed yet. He stood at the door anxiously, but he didn't dare to make his move immediately. After all, the compression of the chi bomb needed time. Although the third stage of the art of dragon mastery was much faster than the first and second stage, it couldn't be compressed in a blink of an eye. After all, Lin Yi was an early phase heaven-class master. The amount of qi he could compress was much larger. If he compressed it according to the previous amount, he could compress it in a blink of an eye, but it would be useless. After all, that kind of qi bomb was effective against low-level practitioners. But now, Lin Yi was facing a peak late-phase heaven-class master. Even if Lin Yi compressed all the qi in his body, he might not be able to cause much damage to the person in front of him, let alone the small-scale qi bomb from before. One had to know that a heaven-class master's ultimate move was a landslide. Their body was even more powerful. Lin Yi couldn't help but be more cautious. The person at the door, you've been watching for so long. Come in and die together. Although Lin Yi hid his aura, the Great Elder could still sense it when he used the art of dragon mastery to compress qi. Lin Yi couldn't help but smile bitterly. It seemed like he had to face it eventually. Moreover, Su Shihan and Cheng Yi's injuries weren't light. Although they wouldn't die for now, if they weren't treated in time, they would still die. Chapter 32:25. A puny heaven-class early phase actually thinks he's some big shot. The Grand Elder looked at Lin Yi's pretentiousness and found it funny. Did he really think he was some big shot? Didn't anyone tell you that Songshan City and Donghai City are my back garden? You came here to kill people and didn't even tell me? Lin, he asked indifferently. What do you mean? Your back garden? Who are you? The Grand Elder frowned slightly and felt that something was wrong. This heaven-class early phase master in front of him was a bit too calm. Wasn't he? Either he had something to rely on, or he didn't know what was good for him. However, how many cultivators who could reach the early stage of heaven rank were hotheads, which one of them didn't put in a lot of effort, so the Grand Elder was a bit unsure. Lin Yi, a wandering cultivator. Lin Yi said indifferently, and said, It's your turn to introduce yourself. Lin Yi. You're Lin Yi. The Grand Elder of the Black Horse Gang subconsciously moved to the side, as if his tail was stepped on. He said in shock, You're that, Lin Yi? Songshan City and Donghai City. How many Lin Yis are there? Lin Yi said coldly, Don't you know that the person I'm protecting is the superstar Su Shihan? For her, I killed Dongfang Yinxing and Pure Yin Tianzuan, and now you beat her until she vomited blood, and even want to kill her mother? The Grand Elder of the Black Horse Gang's heart tightened. Motherf asterisk Kerr, what he was afraid of came true. He came to Songshan City and chose to make a move in the middle of the night to avoid Lin Yi, and not attract Lin Yi's attention. After all, Lin Yi was a person who had been rumored to be a godly existence in the ancient world. He was simply a monster, killing a heaven-class late-phase master in a second. Even the Grand Elder himself didn't dare say that he could kill a heaven-class late-phase master in a second. What kind of strength was this? Isn't this a little too powerful? So it's her. However, there was already enmity between them. The Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Association could only look at Lin Yi vigilantly and said, All right, what do you want? I know you were hired by someone. Tell me who the mastermind is, then leave behind 2 great recover pills, and I will let you go. Although Lin Yi's words were very arrogant, they were also considered. He didn't show too much weakness, but he didn't act too tough either. After all, Lin Yi was also afraid that the person in front of him would act in desperation. If he were to directly release the Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Society, it would be inexcusable. However, from the Great Elder's tone, Lin Yi had already guessed that the Great Elder of the Dark Horse Society was standing up for someone else. Otherwise, there was no way he would know who Su Shihan was. Therefore, Lin Yi used this reason to let the Great Elder go. Really? If I tell you, you will let me go? The Great Elder of the Black Horse Society looked at Lin Yi, and made a judgment in his heart. I always keep my words. Lin Yi nodded and said, I am from the Black Horse Society. The great elder of the Black Horse Association hesitated for a moment before replying, I don't know who issued the mission. I'm only here to accept the mission. I'm the great elder of the Black Horse Association. I'm only responsible for solving problems that are difficult to solve. I'm not responsible for accepting missions. Great recover pill? Lin Yi nodded. He didn't want to waste time. Su Shirhan and Cheng Yi were obviously in urgent need of treatment. I didn't bring it, but you can think of it as the Black Horse Society owes you. You can come to the Black Horse Society anytime. The great elder said, All right, you can go. Linny go to the Black Horse Society to get it? Linny wouldn't be crazy enough to go to the Black Horse Society to get it. Wasn't that the same as looking for death? It was fine to act tough here and scare the great elder. If he went to the Black Horse Society, it was very likely that he would be exposed. Okay, I will send you on your way. The great elder of the Black Horse Society had a trace of a sinister smile on his face. He raised his finger and was about to hit Lin Yi. Lin Yi was extremely shocked. He didn't think that the great elder of the Black Horse Society would make a move just like that. A moment ago, he was leaving, and the next moment, he attacked. Could it be that he saw through the flaw? However, no matter what, Lin Yi could only brace himself and fight. The true energy bomb that was compressed by 90% burst out from Lin Yi's hand and hit the great elder. However, in order not to destroy the entire dormitory building, Lin Yi still limited the direction of the true energy bomb. He tried to make the angle of the bomb aimed at the direction of the window. This way, it would only hit the great elder of the Black Horse Society on the wall and explode outside the wall. It would not blow up the entire building, although there were no orphans living in this building, and the orphans had all moved to the larger dormitory buildings. This building was only for the managers. The current managers were only the old dean and Yu Xiaoka, but Lin Yi didn't want the money spent on building this building to go down the drain. However, what Lin Yi didn't expect was that before his majestic true energy bomb hit the great elder's body, he saw the great elder raise his hand. He didn't know what he did, but before the true energy bomb could explode, it was all absorbed into the great elder's finger and disappeared without a trace. It was as if Lin Yi didn't activate the true energy bomb at all. Where did the true energy bomb go? Lin Yi was incomparably horrified. In the next moment, from the great elder's fingertips, a cyan true energy suddenly shot towards Lin Yi. Lin Yi's reaction was relatively fast. When he was an assassin, he learned the butterfly microsteps from his master, so he didn't let the true energy hit his vital parts. But even so, the true energy shot from the great elder's fingertips still penetrated Lin Yi's left shoulder, shooting a huge bloody hole in Lin Yi's left shoulder. Lin Yi's forehead was covered in cold sweat. It was too painful. He didn't even see what the great elder had done, and he was hit. No, he had to use his last life-saving trick. Lin Yi had no other choice. He directly took out the last inescapable net from the space of the jade pendant and covered the great elder. That inescapable net was taken out from Lin Yi's space of the jade pendant without any warning. Before the great elder could react, he was already wrapped up like a big rice dumpling, unable to move at all. Phew. Looking at the great elder of the Dark Horse Society who was covered, Lin Yi let out a long sigh of relief. He quickly activated the third level of the art of dragon mastery to heal the injury on his left shoulder. As he healed, he looked at the great elder of the Dark Horse Society. Just now, did I make a mistake? Are you really Lin Yi? The great elder of the Dark Horse Society, who was covered by the inescapable net, didn't panic or fear. Instead, he asked very calmly. Chapter 32:26. You're right, but the rumors aren't true. That move you used just now would have killed a Sky-class mid-stage peak, but a sky-class late-stage peak wouldn't be affected at all, let alone me. The great elder said faintly, if you're really Lin Yi, then pure Yin Tianzuan and Dongfang Yinqing didn't die in your hands. The one who killed them was someone else. That's right, it was someone else. I'm just puzzled. Why would you suspect me? Lin Yi said as he walked towards Su Shihan and Cheng Yi. Both of them were heavily injured, but Cheng Yi's injuries were more severe. At this moment, Cheng Yi's breathing became heavy. She stuttered. Xiao Han, I'm sorry, Yi. Why do you say that? You saved me. Why would you be sorry? Su Shihan was confused, but Lin Yi interrupted their conversation. He put his hand on Cheng Yi's pulse and said faintly, shut up if you want to live. Cheng Yi froze. She didn't think that Lin Yi would save her first, and not Su Shihan. It was possible that Lin Yi didn't see through her identity, but she was surprised that he saved her first, and not Su Shihan. Xiao Han's injuries aren't as serious as yours. You're dying. Lin Yi didn't care what Cheng Yi was thinking. He activated the third stage of the art of dragon mastery and started healing Cheng Yi. Lin Yi's shoulder injury wasn't healed yet, but it wouldn't affect anything. So Lin Yi started healing Cheng Yi first. Since I accepted this mission and came to Songshan City, I naturally know that there's a person called Lin Yi in Songshan City and Donghai City. This is his territory. The great elder of the Black Horse Gang didn't feel like a prisoner at all. It was as if Lin Yi couldn't do anything to him. He just told Lin Yi like he was telling a story. I've researched this person, but what you did just now was different from what you did before. Oh, what did he say? Lin Yi frowned slightly. He didn't expect the great elder of the Black Horse Club to be so easy to talk to. He answered truthfully when he asked. It seemed that the great elder of the Black Horse Club didn't put Lin Yi in his eyes at all. Actually, it's very simple. I hurt the people around you, and I almost killed them. According to the legendary Lin Yi's character, he would be furious for the sake of his women. If you really had the ability to instantly kill a peak late-stage heaven-rank powerhouse, you would have definitely killed me the moment you appeared. You wouldn't have said so much nonsense. The Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Association was obviously a thoughtful and cautious person. He made his own judgment in an instant. Moreover, you actually agreed to let me go, and the conditions you proposed weren't particularly excessive. This is one of the suspicious points. It doesn't match your greedy personality. Lin Yi nodded. He had realized this before, but there was nothing he could do. Su Shihan and Cheng Yi's lives were in danger. Lin Yi didn't want to argue with the great elder of the Black Horse Club to avoid unnecessary trouble. However, this was only one of the suspicious points, not the most important one. The most important thing was that he was famous for his protective personality. He didn't expect the great elder of the Black Horse Club to see through him. The great elder didn't directly attack him the moment he entered the room. This was the biggest flaw. So you attacked me? Lin Yi nodded and asked, You're that confident? Of course, there's one more thing. When you were at the door just now, you had been circulating the mantra. I could feel it. This also means that you appeared the moment I entered the house, but you didn't come in. You didn't stop me when I made my move. Instead, you only came in after I spoke. This also means that you are afraid of me. The great elder of the Black Horse Club continued, After you came in, you didn't immediately attack. Instead, you continued to use the mantra. This also proves this point. If you really could instantly kill a peak late-stage heaven-ranked powerhouse, you wouldn't have to be so nervous to use the mantra. You're showing your fear. So that's how it is. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. This was another big flaw that wasn't any less than the previous one. So, in summary, these 3 suspicious points make me sure that you're just an empty shell. The great elder of the Black Horse Club said indifferently, However, if I didn't have a trump card, even if I had doubts, I wouldn't have attacked you directly. I would have left this place and wouldn't have caused unnecessary trouble. But I have a trump card. This is the biggest reason I attacked. The suspicious point is that I'm just an assistant. After listening to the words of the great elder of the Black Horse Club, Lin Yi couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. This person was really smart and calm. If he didn't get rid of this person, he would probably be a big problem in the future. However, how could he get rid of him? In fact, from the moment Lin Yi used the inescapable net to trap the great elder of the Black Horse Club, he had been thinking about how to get rid of him. With Lin Yi's strength, he couldn't kill him at all. Even if he was trapped by the inescapable net, he had true chi to protect his body. No matter how Lin Yi hit him, he wouldn't be able to kill him. And he also said that the power of Lin Yi's current moves couldn't cause him any harm. This was the thing that Lin Yi was most conflicted about. He had obviously caught the other party, but he couldn't do anything to him. It was estimated that the great elder of the Black Horse Club was well aware of this. That was why he was fearless and indifferently talked to Lin Yi. Your so-called trump card was the one that sucked away my true chi? Lin Yi asked. Yes, the great elder of the Black Horse Club didn't hide it. He directly nodded and said, Aren't you going to run? Why are you dawdling here? Don't you know that the inescapable net has a time limit? Time limit? Lin Yi was slightly surprised. He hadn't heard the Spider Clan mention it before. Generally, people who were trapped by the inescapable net couldn't escape from the inside. They would need help from the outside to open the inescapable net. But when it came to time limit, Lin Yi really didn't know. But thinking about it, this thing was a one-time use and had a lifespan. It was impossible to trap the great elder of the Black Horse Club for a lifetime, right? Chapter 32:27. Lin Yi's face was a little ugly, but what the Grand Elder said was the truth. Where could he run to unless he took Su Shirhan, Chung Yi, and the Dean to the West Star Village to take refuge? But there was still a big mess here. He couldn't just ignore it, right? How long does it last? Lin Yi asked with an ugly face, looking at the quality of your inescapable net. It should last for a day, but if I struggle inside, it will only last a few hours. The Grand Elder said, It's just that I don't want to waste my effort. You can't do anything to me at all. Why should I waste my effort? It seems that you are quite confident. Lin Yi was a little helpless. Indeed, with his own strength, he couldn't do anything to the Grand Elder of the Black Horse Society. Even his underlings couldn't do anything. Even if a group of people attacked together, they wouldn't be able to cause any damage to the Grand Elder. After all, they weren't on the same level. Just like a group of ants couldn't shake an elephant, with one stomp of the elephant, the ants would die. However, Lin Yi's mind turned quickly, and he thought of a few people, but he didn't know if these people could help him. The people that Lin Yi knew who could kill the Grand Elder of the Black Horse Society were limited. Other than Old Lin and Air Gooden, who were far away in the West Star Village, there were a few people from the blood-clothed underworld sect, but distant water couldn't put out a nearby fire. Old Lin couldn't come, and even if Air Gooden came, it would take too long. So, the people that Lin Yi could only ask for help were those from the blood-clothed underworld sect. Thinking of this, Lin Yi could only give it a try. He dialed the number left by the blood-clothed underworld sect's sinister ancestor to see if they could help him kill someone. They were an organization that accepted payment to kill people. If Lin Yi paid a certain price, he should be able to get their help, right? Mr. Lin, hello. When Ancestor Eunsun saw that it was Lin Yi's number, he immediately answered. His words were very polite. Because of Lin Dongfang's existence, he didn't dare to be disrespectful to Lin Yi. However, he did not dare to go overboard. He could only put on a flattering expression and speak in a calm tone. Old Ancestor Eunsun, can I ask you to help me kill someone? Lin Yi asked. Originally, When the Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Club saw Lin Yi making a call, he didn't pay much attention. He also knew about Lin Yi's circle of friends. Although he had many underlings, the most powerful ones were only Feng Shipian and a few other ancient people. These people couldn't pose any threat to him, so he wasn't afraid at all. However, his heart skipped a beat when he heard old ancestor Eerie Wood's name. Isn't he from the blood-clothed Yellow Spring sect? Lin Yi called them? What did this mean? Did he want to hire an assassin from the Yellow Spring sect to kill him? However, after thinking about it, the Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Club calmed down. Old Ancestor Yin Sun was just an expert at the peak of the late stage of heaven class. He hadn't reached the great perfection realm yet. Even if he came, he wouldn't be able to kill him with his true chi protection. And if he sent other underlings, then there was even less to worry about. The most worrying ones were the two peak of the late stage of heaven class, Old Ancestor Yellow Spring and Old Ancestor Blood Clothed. However, could these two old ancestors be invited by just anyone? These two old ancestors were existences at the same level as him. They wouldn't be interested in ordinary missions. Moreover, these big shots were very reserved. It was impossible for them to come out just because someone invited them. Moreover, the blood-clothed Yellow Spring sect was far from Songshan City. Even if the two peak of the late stage of heaven class, Old Ancestor Yellow Spring sect, came out, by the time they arrived, he would have already escaped from the inescapable net. There was nothing to worry about. However, the Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Club was obviously an astute and cautious person. He wouldn't allow any deviation. Therefore, when Lin Yi made the call, he began to struggle in the inescapable net. He wanted to escape from the inescapable net as soon as possible, lest Lin Yi really hired an assassin to kill him. According to his estimation, he would struggle for about 3 hours to escape from the inescapable net. The blood-clothed Yellow Spring sect would need at least 7 to 8 hours to get here. Therefore, after weighing the pros and cons, he still wouldn't be in any danger. Oh, kill someone? Kill who? Mr. Lin wants to hire us, the blood-clothed Yellow Spring sect, to assassinate someone, right? Old Ancestor Yin Sun was slightly stunned. He didn't expect Lin Yi to hire them to kill someone. However, in order to put on a good show, Old Ancestor Yin Sun couldn't act too impatient. He couldn't say that as soon as Lin Yi called to kill someone, he would say yes, yes, yes. That would be too pretentious and would easily expose him. Yes, this person is the Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Club. He has the strength of a peak of the late stage of heaven class. I've already used the inescapable net to trap him, but I can't kill him. Your blood-clothed Yellow Spring sect just needs to get the blood-clothed ancestor and Old Ancestor Yellow Spring sect to join forces and kill him. Lin Yi quickly explained in detail. He had already seen the Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Club struggling in the inescapable net. He didn't dare to be negligent. If the Supreme Elder struggled out, it would be a disaster. Therefore, he said concisely, the mission isn't dangerous, and it's relatively easy. How about it? Are you interested, Old Ancestor Yin Sun? Lin Yi had been an assassin before, so he knew some of the rules. The easier the mission, the lower the reward. However, because of the special level of the person to be killed, 2 important people were needed. The reason why Lin Yi called the people from the blood-clothed Yellow Spring sect was because they were practitioners and could run quickly. Old Lin and Air Gooden could only take the train. In comparison, the people from the blood-clothed Yellow Spring sect could come faster. Ah, it's the Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Club. That's great. Mr. Lin, we were just wondering if we should accept this mission. You've really helped us a lot. Old Ancestor Yin Sun's heart skipped a beat when he heard that it was the Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Club. Cold sweat appeared on his forehead. Dereliction of duty. The 3 of them were stationed in Donghai City, researching Lin Yi's whereabouts, personality, and social circle. Naturally, they would pay more attention to the things happening around here. A peak of the late stage of heaven class appeared, right under their noses. Naturally, they would pay attention to it. However, when they heard that the Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Club appeared to kill the old dean of an orphanage, they didn't pay much attention to it. After all, the Black Horse Club and the blood-clothed Yellow Spring sect were in the same industry. They were all on the same level, and there was no need to ruin their friendship over a small matter. Chapter 32:28. They hadn't investigated the relationship between the orphanage and Lin Yi, and they didn't know that the old dean was Su Shihan's mother. Therefore, they didn't care at all, and only treated the Black Horse Gang's Grand Elder as a passerby. However, after receiving Lin Yi's call, they realized that they were wrong, ridiculously wrong. The Black Horse Gang's Grand Elder actually went against Lin Yi, and after Lin Yi caught him, he even hired the Blood Cloth Underworld Gang's people to kill the Black Horse Gang's Grand Elder. How much hatred did he have? What if Lin Yi didn't have an inescapable net? Wouldn't he be killed by this old thing? Thinking of this, Yin's son ancestor was drenched in cold sweat. How could he dare to ask for a reward from Lin Yi? Therefore, he acted according to the situation and said so. Did I help? What did I help? Lin Yi was slightly stunned. It's like this, we are not far from here. We came here because someone gave us a new mission. The reward is very high, but the difficulty is also very high. It is to kill the Black Horse Gang's Grand Elder. The Eerie Forest ancestor said, "This person is an expert at the peak of the late stage of heaven rank. We don't have the confidence to kill him without suffering any losses in a head-on clash. So, when we were discussing a plan, Mr. Lin brought us good news. How about this? We will go over immediately. Count it as our Blood Cloth Underworld Gang owes Mr. Lin a favor. If Mr. Lin needs anything in the future, contact me directly." After saying that, Yin's son ancestor hung up the phone without waiting for Lin Yi to say anything. Obviously, Yin's son ancestor knew that time was pressing and didn't dare to delay. However, Lin Yi looked at the phone in his hand in a daze, smiling bitterly in his heart. What is this? This is too strange. I originally wanted to hire the Blood Cloth Underworld Gang to kill people, but I don't know if they would agree or what conditions they would propose. He was originally worried, but now he had inexplicably become the helper of the blood-clothed underworld sect. Not only did they send people to kill the Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Gang, but they also said that they owed him a favor. Lin Yi shook his head. Strange things happened every year. The Yellow Spring sect had a lot of bloodshed. It was the same last time. However, Lin Yi felt that the people from the Blood Underworld sect were very good. If the other party did not say anything and instead agreed to Lin Yi's request, not only could they earn a commission from Lin Yi, but they would also not owe Lin Yi a favor. Moreover, they could complete their mission of killing the Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Gang. It was killing 3 birds with 1 stone. However, the Blood Cloth Yellow Spring sect didn't do so. What a kind sect! Of course, this was just Lin Yi's impression. He wondered if other cultivators, sects, and families who had dealings with the Blood Cloth Yellow Spring sect would vomit blood. Was the Blood Cloth Yellow Spring sect kind? Honest my ass. How could this kind of assassin organization talk about favors with you? Was he sleep-talking? However, Lin Yi didn't know much about the ancient world. He didn't know what the Blood Cloth Yellow Spring sect was like in the past. After these 2 encounters, he felt that the Blood Cloth Yellow Spring sect was really a good person. Looking at the struggling Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Gang in front of him, Lin Yi's mouth curved into a mocking smile. If the Blood Cloth Yellow Spring sect was on the other side of the sect, they would have rushed over quickly. However, Lin Yi was still worried. He didn't know if the Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Gang would be able to struggle out of the trap. But now he didn't have to worry about this because the blood-cloth yellow spring sect was nearby. Cheng-Yi didn't expect Lin-Yi to know someone from the blood-cloth yellow spring sect. She was a bit surprised, but she felt her injuries gradually getting better. Her heart was filled with guilt. If she had died just now, she would have died. But now, she was alive again. How would she face Su Shirhan in the future? All right, you won't die. Earth-class early phase master. Lin-Yi faintly whispered in Cheng-Yi's ear. He used Jun Qi to transmit sound so others couldn't hear. However, Cheng-Yi's face flashed a trace of astonishment. Lin-Yi actually knew her strength level. That wasn't right. She'd never shown it in front of him before. How did Lin-Yi know? Even when Lin-Yi healed her, she didn't use Jun Qi to heal herself. And before, when she took the blow from the Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Gang, she did use Jun Qi to protect her body. But at that time, Lin-Yi hadn't entered the door yet. And there was so much Jun Qi in the room. There was the deans and the Supreme Elders. Lin-Yi shouldn't be able to tell who was who, right? Lin-Yi, how did he know? However, being surprised was just being surprised. Before she could ask, Lin-Yi had already turned to heal Su Shirhan. He didn't give Cheng-Yi a chance to ask. The Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Gang kept struggling in the net. The defense of the net was very good. No matter how the Supreme Elder used his moves, it was like hitting cotton. Moreover, the net was one way. It couldn't be attacked from the inside, but it could be attacked from the outside. So this was the reason why the Supreme Elder was struggling so hard. He wanted to break free and escape. Right now, whether or not he could kill Lin-Yi and these people in front of him was no longer important. For the Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Gang, escaping was the most important thing. He didn't want to die in the hands of the blood-clothed Yellow Spring sect. However, how could the net of the Spider Clan be broken so easily? The Great Flame Lion Clan's ability to spit fire from the inside was limited. Only when a few Great Flame Lions spit fire from the outside could it be broken. No matter how powerful the Grand Supreme Elder of the Dark Horse Association was, he was still a human cultivator. Compared to those powerful spirit beasts, there was still a difference. Previously, he also heard Lin-Yi's phone call. He was a peak late-stage heaven-class master. The room was very quiet. It wasn't difficult to hear the voice of the gloomy ancestor from Lin-Yi's phone. He didn't understand. Why did the blood-clothed Yellow Spring sect receive a mission to kill him? Who wanted to kill him? He was the Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Gang. He rarely left the sect. During this time, he didn't have any enmity with anyone. So, which bastard hired the blood-clothed Yellow Spring sect to kill him? What made him most depressed was that the blood-clothed ancestor, and the gloomy ancestor were all nearby. Then, if they came, wouldn't he be dead? How could there be such an unlucky thing in this world? So, he didn't care about what Lin-Yi said. All threats were useless. The only thing he could do was to break free and escape. Chapter 32:29. He took in a deep breath, and a mocking smile appeared on his lips. What were you doing just now, trying to cram for the Buddha's feet? If you didn't talk nonsense with me just now, you might have escaped by now. Of course, even if the Grand Elder didn't talk nonsense just now, he definitely wouldn't be able to escape now. Lin-Yi's words were just to disturb his mind, so that the Grand Elder wouldn't be able to escape in one piece. In fact, although Lin-Yi was mocking him, his eyes didn't even blink as he stared at the inescapable net. When the inescapable net loosened a little, he would escape immediately. At this time, Xiaoka and Xiao Ken also heard the movement and came to the door of the room. However, when they saw the strange scene inside, they didn't dare to rashly enter the door. The dean, on the other hand, didn't know what to say at this moment. She was a little dumbfounded looking at everything that was happening in front of her. Dean, take Xiaohan, Yi, and Xiaoko away from here first. Go somewhere else to rest. Lin Yi said to the dean, because Lin Yi couldn't guarantee that the Grand Elder wouldn't be able to escape from the inescapable net before the people from the Blood Cloak underworld sect arrived. If he really did escape, then it would be F***Ked. He had to hold back at all times. Moreover, when the people from the Blood Cloak underworld sect came to kill the Grand Elder, the process would definitely be very bloody. After all, if he didn't die in one hit, they would have to fight many times. That would be a bit cruel. Okay, I understand. The dean nodded. She knew that they were causing trouble for Lin Yi by staying here. If there was trouble later, Lin Yi would have to take care of them, and it would be easy to be distracted. So the dean came back to her senses and brought Su Shirhan, Cheng Yi, and Xiaoka out of the room. Although Su Shirhan and Cheng Yi had a lot of questions to ask Lin Yi, they knew it wasn't the right time. After the dean and the others left, Lin Yi let out a sigh of relief. He looked at the backs of these people until they disappeared. Only then did he turn his head to look at the Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Gang. Hey, you're about to die. Tell me the truth. I don't believe that the Black Horse Gang didn't tell you who sent you on this mission before you left. Humph. The Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Association obviously didn't put Lin Yi in his eyes. He coldly snorted and didn't say anything. He. Lin Yi frowned slightly and chuckled. He knew that he wouldn't be able to get anything out of him. It would be extremely difficult to pry any secrets out of an expert like the Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Association. If he didn't want to say it, it would be useless no matter how much you asked. Time passed minute by minute. Even though Lin Yi was burning with anxiety, he didn't show it. On the other hand, the Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Association was burning with anxiety. He had struggled for more than 20 minutes, but this inescapable net was still tightly binding his body. It didn't loosen the slightest bit, which made him a little discouraged. If the people from the Blood Cloak underworld sect were really nearby, half an hour was more than enough for these peak late phase and peak late phase heaven class masters. Sure enough, there was the sound of hurried footsteps coming from the corridor. The next moment, the Blood Cloak ancestor, the Underworld ancestor, and the Eerie ancestor appeared at the door. The Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Association struggled for a while, but when he saw the three people at the door, he stopped struggling. He was a little disappointed because he knew that no matter how much he struggled, it was useless. The three people in front of him together could kill him. Even if he had true chi protecting his body, these three people took turns to attack him. He would die without a doubt. He was a person who planned before taking action. Since he knew the result, he wouldn't struggle needlessly. Who sent you to kill me? Our Black Horse Association and the Blood Cloak Underworld sect are similar in nature. We have always minded our own business. You know my identity and still came to kill me. Are you trying to start a feud? The Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Association gave up struggling and changed to a way to talk about feelings. Does the Black Horse Association have a business that reveals the identity of the employer? The Eerie ancestor looked at the Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Association indifferently and said, "Why don't you tell me who sent you first?" The words of the Eerie ancestor seemed to be sarcastic, but in fact, he was helping Lin Yi figure out the truth. He didn't know if Lin Yi knew the mastermind behind the scenes, but there was no harm in asking. This, if I say it, you'll say it? The Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Association was slightly stunned, but he asked mockingly, "Sure, I'll say it if you say it." The Eerie ancestor said, indifferently, "Good. I was sent by the ancient Feng family's Feng, Tianhu. You should say it now, right?" In order to know the truth, the Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Association didn't intend to keep it a secret. He didn't want to die without knowing why. At least before he died, he should at least know how he died. The ancient Feng family's Feng, Tianhu? I don't know him. The Eerie ancestor shook his head, as if he didn't care at all. Then he said, Actually, it's not impossible to let you die knowing, but I'm afraid you won't be able to bear it. In fact, the person who hired us to kill you is the Black Horse Association." "What?" The Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Association's eyes narrowed, and a trace of disbelief flashed in his eyes. But then it became fierce. "The president hired you?" The president that the Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Association mentioned was naturally the leader of the Black Horse Association. The leader had recently advanced to the peak late stage of heaven rank, which meant that his authority was no longer restricted by the Supreme Elder. He had become the real boss of the Black Horse Association. However, the great elder of the Black Horse Association had displayed some dissatisfaction and unnecessary respect for him before, and the other great elders had very well adjusted their attitudes. Perhaps this was the reason why he wanted to kill him. In fact, this wasn't a contradiction at all. Even if the president of the Black Horse Association had water in his head, it was impossible for him to spend a large sum of money to kill a fierce member of his own association. This kind of peak late-stage heaven rank expert was not common. How could he die so casually? But at this time, the Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Association believed it because he didn't doubt the words of the eerie ancestor. After all, the Bloodcloth Underworld sect was the same as the Black Horse Association. They were an organization that took money to eliminate disasters. It was impossible for the Bloodcloth Underworld sect to kill him for no reason, unless they had nothing better to do. So when the eerie ancestor said it, he used his rich imagination and blamed his death on the president. You're tuning in to the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.